IB Nation, welcome back to the Average Breakdown Podcast. We are live here on a Friday, which means it's Notre Dame recruiting hour time with my guy, Sean Davis, of course, the co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast with Mr. Malik Zaire. It's been a difference over there, I do hear. And welcoming everyone to the show. We have a very hectic show today, a really fun one. I was very fortunate to line up an awesome guest for you all that we'll get into in a second. We're also going to talk about some recruiting rankings because I know everyone loves to talk about recruiting rankings. So recently, ESPN had a recruiting ranking update that just came out. Last week, 247 had an update as well. So we wanted to hit on both of those guys here kind of briefly, or not briefly. We're going to go super in depth on it, actually, and talk some mailbag stuff as well. But we lined up an awesome interview, Sean. I think he was on the Lucky Lefty podcast at one point or another. I do believe so. So
yeah,
got
he's been on with us.
Yeah, so he's a repeat offender to the Sean Davis hosted podcast, man. So we're gonna bring Mr. CJ Prosise on, of course, former Notre Dame great running back, also played some safety during his career, played some wide receiver, 1,000-yard rusher on that very good 2015 team as well. Also, third-round draft pick of the Seattle Seahawks. And by the way, folks, I don't know if you have heard this at this point, but CJ also has a podcast on the Believe Podcast Network called Lucky Underdogs, a Notre Dame football podcast, which he hosts with his former teammate, Devin Butler, of course, defensive back from Notre Dame as well. CJ, love having you on, man. Thank you so much for joining the show today, brother. I really appreciate it. Sure, seriously.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. I appreciate you guys having me, Ryan. Appreciate you. And Sean, obviously, man, always love seeing you, man. Appreciate you, man.
You already know, bro.
Yeah.
Well, we're really excited to have you, CJ, because one, you were one of my favorite players, to be very honest with you. And I loved you just seeing like the jet sweep stuff right in 2014, but then 2015, I was like, he's playing what position now after a little bit of injury string, and then became a 1,000-yard rusher. So obviously, you were a fantastic player, and I always find it crazy because I'm just like, he literally played running back 1 year and then was a third-round draft pick off of one season at a position, which is just absolutely incredible to think.
It was crazy.
Yeah, man. And we're going to get into all that, CJ. Yeah. Obviously, I want to pose this, and we've done this in the past here on the podcast, the recruits of the past, because obviously recruiting hour here, we love to give the perspective into Notre Dame recruiting, all the ins and outs, and the players Notre Dame is looking at and who they're searching for and who might commit, who might not commit, and kind of all the backstories associated. So we've been, from time to time, it's been a little bit of a break, but we've been bringing on some former Notre Dame players and try to get like a little bit of their perspective. It's really interesting, especially like we had Bertrand Berry on and Oscar McBride, and they were like, their recruiting goes back to like the 80s and the 90s. So this one's a little bit more recent than that.
A little bit.
But, well, let me ask you, CJ, because I know you're a Woodbury Forest guy. Obviously, Notre Dame had a nice string of Woodbury Forest for a couple years, and they actually just got one in the last class, Armel Mukum out of Woodbury Forest for the first time in some time. Let me ask you just your recruitment. I know you were an athlete, obviously, coming out of high school, did a lot of things for Notre Dame. How would you just kind of characterize, I guess, your recruiting experience kind of working back in memory here?
I would say, obviously, compared to what it is in these days, it's like prehistoric, what I was doing. And, but still, I went to all boys boarding school. So, everything with me was kind of like, kind of close knit, as far as like my family visits and stuff like that. But, even when Notre Dame recruited me, I was like a 3-star guy. I wasn't really big time. So I didn't really have wasn't going on a lot of visits or anything like that. So I was kind of surprised when Notre Dame started recruiting me, honestly. And then I was the first ever like guy to ever get recruited by Notre Dame at my school. Yeah. And so I kind of started that pipeline, and it was after me, it was kind of like 1, 2, 3, was kind of crazy. And just having those, just being able to connect those two schools was, I feel like something. It's one of my greatest accomplishments, just because, Woodbury is such a prestigious high school, and Notre Dame being such a prestigious college. But as far as recruiting process, I feel like my process was pretty basic. Like, I started getting offers in, February of junior year, on signing day of the previous class. And then I got I had 5 offers on that day. Notre Dame offered me 30 days later. And then I committed maybe 2 weeks after they offered me. So it was like yeah, it was. So my process was like 2 months long, basically, as far as recruiting was. Like I ain't even going no visits and nothing. Like so,
Wild.
mine was basic, really. Like
It has certainly changed, CJ, which I'm excited to talk about some of these
yeah,
changes because I mean, social media is obviously taking a huge boom, but then
mhm.
also unlimited official visits now,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
right.
and
Like
all that stuff. So, well, let me ask you because I've obviously I've gotten the fortune of learning a couple about you Woodbury Forest guys. So we actually
mhm.
had Greer Martini on the podcast. Of course,
Okay,
came from
yeah,
Woodbury Forest. Armel Mookum, I got to know really well in the 2023 recruiting class out of
yeah.
Woodbury as well. How much did going to Woodbury really help you, I guess, prepare for that next step of Notre Dame? It's like you said, it's a prestigious school. I feel like it had to have gotten you really ready for the rigor and just handling everything.
Yeah, just as far as the schedule wise, it's like it's no different from high school to college. Like you'll like it's almost like Texas football as far as like, they practice early in the morning, they go to school, then they have meetings and stuff in the afternoon. It's kind of the same thing as far as like my boarding school. Like we even had class on Saturday, so it was kind of so as far as like once you go to college and have that schedule of being a student athlete, it doesn't really affect you as much. Um, I mean, but everybody obviously gets used to it. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's like the high school just kind of prepares you. I mean, Woodbury, I would say more so. I wouldn't say prepared like me mentally. I say like just put me in that place to be like to go to Notre Dame.
Sure.
Like as far as like if I'd have went to my regular public high school, I would have never had a chance to get to Notre Dame. So I think just going to Woodbury, it really put me in a place where I could have put myself in gave myself the opportunity to go to Notre Dame, and that's what I was most grateful for. And then the friends and the people I meet, like Greer, still one of my best friends now. And so that's really the best part of it. I wouldn't say the preparation as far as like as academic wise and stuff like that, because that's all how much you put into it. And I didn't put a lot into my academic wise. So athletically, I put all into that. And then academically, it was like, yeah, I just gonna get through. So um, definitely prepare me.
Yeah. CJ, you talk about your experience and how if you're going to the public school, you might not have ended up in Notre Dame. And it makes me think about a Notre Dame commit who was a quarterback from Mississippi and thought it would be a better look for him to go to a nationally ranked team in Tennessee. And it took him like 3 weeks to realize I don't fit here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't fit this offense. Let me go back home to my team and rock out. Do you think the recruiting world is a little bit smaller than it used to be, and kids can stay at their public schools and still get noticed, unlike what you spoke about?
And just with social media, it's a just a whole new ball game now. Even when I was in high school, it was YouTube and stuff was just like coming out. So I remember, I mean, it's kind of funny. I kind of still hold a grudge to today, but Al Golden was at Miami when I was in like, I think eighth grade, maybe ninth, 10th grade. And I was sending him like my film through like email thinking he gonna look at it. Like he probably never seen that, like never seen the highlights I sent him. But like, nowadays I could have just sent it to him on whatever, Instagram, or literally just send it right to his page and he could have seen it. And so it's just a different world now. You really, I if I was fortunate, I had guys that went to college in front of me at Woodbury, so they were able to bring some, college scouts to come and see us. But if it wasn't for that, I really would have just been the first guy, trying to pull scouts to come in from just to come see Woodbury, because I don't know if but just probably heard of it, but if you ever seen it, you ain't gonna find it just out of the nowhere. You gotta know where it's at. Like it's middle of nowhere, like tucked off, secret entrance, everything. It's like Hogwarts. So you ain't just finding that school. So so for scouts to get there, they're gonna have to know where they're going.
Sean, what's funny is I think I'm only a couple years older than CJ, but I'm thinking back to like my recruiting thing. And I remember like I used to have to, because I'm about to turn 32. So I don't think I'm that much older than you, CJ, but like
Yeah.
we used to have to burn the game film to VHS tapes. Like we weren't even doing DVDs at that point.
Yeah, like we still,
It's crazy how fast. And now you can
yeah.
just send any coach a DM of like, "Hey, coach, here's my film." I mean, I get them all the time, even though I'm not associated with the school, which is absolutely hilarious.
You can get your parents to record it from your phone and then send it. They can just send it right from the game. Like
it's crazy.
Literally, I got my benefit. That has the benefit of school like Notre Dame, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. That is really recruiting from a smaller pool. Yeah, let's say at Alabama and Georgia, to be able to go through tape and see guys that aren't highly touted. No one might even know about them, but the ability to have that film available sent to you and to go find, like you said, those jewels
right
in every recruiting class.
Yes.
Armel Mukam was one of those late jewels for Notre Dame.
He was a kid from Canada, man. He was playing hockey up in Canada, came down as a junior to Woodbury Forest, and the rest is history from there. To your point, Sean. It's wild. Well, CJ, let me ask you this. It's a little bit of a tough question because obviously it's different nowadays, but I mentioned a couple of the changes, obviously, with unlimited official visits and now obviously NIL being a big conversation amongst, recruits these days. Do you feel like if you were a recruit today, how much do you think that would have changed your process? Do you feel like you would have went on visits? You would have taken maybe a longer time to make a decision? Like, I guess I'm just curious of like what you feel like the changes would have done for your recruitment in general.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, hindsight, I would, more. And if I went back to, high school now and I was 18 and I know everything I knew now, like, oh yeah, I probably still would choose Notre Dame, honestly, but like my process would be a completely different. And so, I think that's probably the main thing. As far as like, and I guess, as far as what I would tell the recruits, I'm gonna still tell them the same thing I would guess people told me is like, don't, choose a school for the school you want to go to. Don't choose it for a coach or anybody else, money, because at the end of the day, it's all gonna be there. It's all gonna be the same. Choose a school that you want to go to that you feel right being at, and go from there. I didn't even visit Notre Dame before I committed. I just, on a whim, I said, hey, out of all the schools that offer me, this feels the best. This feels the best. Like,
was move-in day the first time you got up to South Bend? Then when was the first time you got up there?
No. So I mean, I visited like 2 weeks. I think it was a month after I committed.
Okay.
But literally, I think the day they offered me, and then I think the day I committed or something, the Charlie Monar was the offensive coordinator, and he left the day I committed. And he was my recruiting coordinator. So he came to my school, and the next day he left. And that was my first I guess feeling of, all right, this is like what college football is like. So
right.
Like coach is gonna be going back and forth, in and out.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame was just, I don't know what it was about it. The whole, I mean, I always had like a love for Notre Dame, kind of like, I mean, I wasn't like a big fan, but I always had like a love. It was always Miami, Notre Dame, my two favorite schools, but which is crazy with their rivals. But
at least it's not Notre Dame and Michigan. You're right.
Okay. But yeah, once they offered me, it was like, yeah, I think this is it. This is the right call. My family, everybody wanted to move, so I think that it was the right move for me.
Yeah. So that first winter must have been a doozy, huh?
Yeah,
take a visit.
Yeah. It was rough. It was rough, but I think you know what you're getting yourself into.
So you come into a program, Marcus Freeman and his staff, they're trying to build something right now. So these recruiting classes are the foundational pieces. You come in, Notre Dame's been to a national championship in 2012. They've had 4 or 5 years to build a program. And you come in with you and the rest of your guys, Devin and the recruiting class, and you guys form this group that's pretty much the title of your podcast. Talk about that, what it meant to be the lucky underdogs and how that pushed you guys when you arrived on campus to go ahead and make a difference when you got your opportunity.
Yeah, man, I think like you said, the lucky underdog, man, we try to highlight the guys who don't really get those opportunities and get the the guys that don't get the media coverage, maybe might not be a starter, might be a backup, but they get in, they're gonna make the most out of the opportunity. And so that's kind of the that legion of lucky dog guys, underdog guys we kind of formed. And it really all started with special teams. It's like though you kind of you start running down on kickoff, blocking on front line on kick return, and that's kind of where you earn your stripes at. Most guys coming to the college level, you're not gonna really understand the physicality of it. But the one place you really gonna understand the physicality of it is kickoff, kick return. so when you out there and you holding your own, oh yeah, you team underdog now, and then you gonna go out there and you gonna earn your stripes. And because at the end of the day, those are guys who start the game off every game, kickoff, kick return. So I think those special teams, that's where that core of guys is formed.
Yeah.
And then you see them, then you start seeing guys, you get the game 6, 7, 8, and starters starting to go down, little injuries and hits, little injuries here. Guy might be getting ready for the drafts, might twist his ankle, so he might be out for a couple games. So that's when the underdogs really step up, and so that's where you see a lot of, especially at the bowl game time, you see a lot of the young guys stepping up, and those were the underdogs really shine because they like, hey, this is my time to shine now. I'm trying to get the industry. It's underdog and it's industry. We trying to get the team. We trying to get the team industry. But somewhere in between, you good too.
So I talked to a great Jeff Burris, a former Notre Dame player, and he talked about his first practice when he walked out on the field, and he looked up and Ricky Waters was running towards him with his shirt off, and he was like, "Yo, I got a lot of work to do."
Yeah.
When you first arrived, like, who was the OG or the person you saw on the practice field and you were like, okay, he's different and this is different?
I mean, to be honest, our whole defense was like kind of different. Especially, I came in 2012, I was playing safety. And so, we had Manti, Big Lou, Stephon Tuitt, Capron Lewis Moore, Daniel Spahn, Prince Shimbo. Janoris Jenkins. Janoris Slaughter, Zeke Mata. So we had so many guys. Like, you in that room, you like, man, like it's a lot of personalities in here. It's a lot of good players. But I think I think for me, that guy was Janoris Slaughter. He was a fifth year. And he was just so talented. Like, everything he did was just like, nobody beat him man to man. Nobody can get past him. Like, tackles, pure tackler, boom. And then so all through camp, all through early ball, and I had prospected. I had did my recruiting visit with him, so I kind of got like a little definitely has formed like a little bond with him, and just learning from him, watching studying the game, watching how he studied. And then, so we obviously get through camp, and he's helped me out a lot. I get moved to linebacker my first day of camp. So then I was relying on Manti at that point a lot. So Manti used to call me Flash all the time because I was just fast. I wasn't doing no tackling. I was just fast, just running past people. I was not doing no tackling, but yeah, Janoris he was that guy who really kind of like helped me out a lot. And then him getting hurt like this, I think it was the second game of the season. Like, yeah, damn, that shit, that one really hurt me because it's like, man, I know he had worked so hard to come back for that fifth year, and it was finally his year to shine, and then it just kind of just went all, just how the cookie crumbles. But it's like, dang, I wish he could have been playing it during this time where he could have got another extra year. The boys now can play for 6-7 years and be all right. But
CJ, I was curious about something because obviously you being an athlete that could play so many different positions potentially in college, like when you were being recruited, was there like an openness to like, hey, we don't know where you're going to play, but like we want you just as an athlete? Or was it always, I guess, throughout the draft process, the recruiting process, you're going to be a safety? Like, you're going to be a safety. Like, what was the pitch, I guess, from a positional perspective?
Well, Notre Dame, it was safety. It was like, yeah, we want you to play safety, but they had Coach Martin was my recruiter, and Coach Monar was my recruiter. So I'm like, what do y'all really want me playing?
Right, you got both sides of the ball
You
there.
know,
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know, because then Martin had got moved to offensive coordinator when he was recruiting me. So I'm like, y'all just trying to give me an offense. And then because the Diaco barely even really talked to me during my like before I like committed, and once I committed, he started talking to me a little bit more. But before, like, it was I was talking to all offensive coaches. I'm like, am I playing offense when I get there? But in my mind, I was playing safety. Coming out of high school, it was like I had no intentions on playing receivers. If a team was like, "Yeah, we want your receiver," I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna play safety." Like I had like a couple schools to like if you come here, you're gonna play receiver. I said, "No, I'm good. Then you can just take the offer back because I didn't want to play receiver. I don't know why. I was like, I'm a safety. Like I knew I was a safety. I still thought I was a safety like at Notre Dame. If I wasn't.
I feel like after that switch from safety to linebacker, like you probably would have been a rover in today's defense. You know what I mean? Like 4-5 maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I think a rover, like definitely, I'd have been a solid rover because I was just real versatile. But I was a ball hawk, like, and then Diaco's defense, I really wasn't I wasn't really a fit in Diaco's defense. It was more, 3-4, keep everything in front of you. But I was definitely like a single high playing the quarterback size safety, like pure tackler. I'm not gonna make no big hits, but I'm going for the ball every time. Every single time.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I asked that question, CJ, because like I'm thinking of like the Notre Dame version that we're seeing in 2023. One of the most beloved players, I think, in Notre Dame fandom now is Xavier Watts, and he kind of had a similar, kind of move. Like, I mean, he went from wide receiver to linebacker to safety, back to receiver, back to safety. He finally kind of found his home. How difficult is that, having to move so many different times, different positions, and just I guess just kind of, I don't want to say unsettled, but like your mindset of like, this is my role on this team.
Yeah, I think I think the hardest part is the confidence in yourself. I think somebody I want to commend a lot right now is Chris Tyree, because like the confidence that he's showing to play to go from running back to receiver, that is tough because you're playing a whole nother position. You're getting the ball in a whole different way that you never gotten the ball before. And it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And so to have that confidence in yourself and like to go out there and be like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm gonna do this thing. It's not easy. So I definitely commend guys like Xavier Watts, Chris Tyree, because just I would just say just keep that confidence in yourself, because as far as football wise, like you actually, when you switch in positions, you like, this is actually kind of good because I'm learning more football. Like I'm literally learning more football. Like me switching positions is making me a better football player. So that's how I look at it. But as far as like I would just say like keeping that confidence in yourself instead of being like they just switched me, like because I kind of got that when I went to running back. I was like, dang, like they kind of switched me to running back, and which I should have felt that way because they kind of did limit me a lot when they switched me to running back. But just as far as like later in my career, but as far as anything else, yeah, it's good. Just you don't want to switch to running back. Any other position, pride, but not running back. That's not the position you want to switch to right now.
That's interesting because I think about switching positions. I remember watching, I think it might have been it was either fall or spring this year, but the Notre Dame staff, they knew they were short, didn't have depth of receiver, and Xavier Watts starts practicing at receiver, and he's making 50-50 catches in practice, and I'm like, oh. But then to come to find out, he flat out told the coaches, I don't want to play wide receiver. Like, I'm going to stay at safety. And to see him blossom, I'm glad he stood his ground in that position and said, I understand, I'm needed, but man, I really would appreciate it if you guys let me stay here. Do you, looking back at everything you went through, is there any position that you say, I wish I had just said, yo, let me stay here?
I honestly wish I would have been like, yeah, let me stay at safety. Even or I mean either safety or receiver, honestly. But I think probably safety, where I could have just learn, because I had played that position for at that point 3 years of my life, 3
Yeah.
years all through high school. And so I knew that position. I studied that position a lot. And so, when I got moved, it was like, obviously I knew I could play offense. I knew I was good on offense, but I was like, I wanted to play defense. Like, I just felt like I just wanted to play. I just wanted to be on defense. And I think, just in the long run, as far as my career, I could have had a better shot at still playing if I was on defense, just because running back. I mean, we all know what the system, where running back is at it right now.
Yeah.
And I always say too, like, it's the hardest, it's such a hard position because it's only one running back on the field, and it's only, it's the position's already devalued. Now it's only one of you on the field. So it's like, you're fighting for that one spot, at least receiver, you got 3 spots or 2-3 spots, 4 spots at times. Tight end, you got 2 spots, 2-3 spots. And then, DB, you got 5-6 spots to go in the field. So it's just it's just a bigger pool of people that they're choosing from. And
so you have to really enjoy watching Xavier Watts.
Oh yeah.
Right? You talked about big playing in Bob Diaco's system. I'm sure you sit back and watch games now. You see Benji and Cam locking up.
Yep.
And like Notre Dame going single high, and you're like, "Ooh, I wish I could have played."
I'm telling you,
Al Golden's defense, which goes full circle to you sending your tape to him when he was a head coach.
Oh, I'm just happy. I'm happy to see the defense, like the strength of the defense be the DBs, because the DBs always get a lot of. They get a lot, and I get the DBs a lot too, because I'm gonna be saying, because we didn't have some DBs that get burnt in the past. All right, we be getting burnt. All right, so like, DBs, they didn't took a lot, so they definitely deserve to have some good guys. Ben and Cam out there just locking things up, and the safeties and able to just run over the field and make plays like this. That's cool to see. I mean, obviously, we've had some really good DBs in the past with Kyle and Julian Love and stuff, but having these 2 guys we got this year at the corners, man,
pretty good players.
Different. Yeah. They're sticky. I mean, Ben is sticky. He's one of the stickiest like players I've seen in college football. Like, he just every time you see it, he's on the receiver every time. I'll take a penalty here or there. I'm cool with that.
He's very sneaky. You have to watch him.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the biggest trash talkers.
I can feel that.
Right.
I can see that.
You can see it more in practice.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention,
he be because he be right in your face the whole game, so you're talking like.
Which is why I think everyone likes him so much, because he's like the nicest kid off the field, right?
Yeah.
And then on the field, he's got. Yeah, I was Joe CJ, because like I always know the defensive backs, because I'm just like, you never have your mouthpiece in, like I know who you are. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
You're always talking. We're running up on time on you. I just want to ask you a couple more. As far as, because you talked about obviously a couple of the coaches that were involved in like the recruiting side with you, guys that you really got to know. I'm curious just about your early impressions of Marcus Freeman, as far as from a player's perspective. Like, if you were going through your recruiting process, let's say, and you were hearing from someone like Marcus Freeman, the way he presents himself, the person he is, how attractive do you feel like that would have been as far as, really making a decision potentially for Notre Dame?
I mean, I could tell you, if it was between Notre Dame and LSU, I was picking Notre Dame just because of Freeman. Just because, if having Kelly, he wasn't, somebody I committed for. I barely even knew who he was when I committed to Notre Dame. I didn't care who the head coach was. So like, I'm like, I'm not going to go somewhere for a head coach because he might be gone in 2 years. Sure. So that was, but I think, as far as with Freeman, the kind of the, what the culture he's instilled and he's bringing to, like, he's brought to Notre Dame. I think for me, I would have loved to play for a coach like Coach Freeman. I think if I had to, if I had to decide, I think it was funny. The only drawback of me when I was in my process of like, committing to Notre Dame was like, how is this head coach going to be? Like, my parents are like, that was my parents. That was their only concern. They were like, is this head coach is going like just basically, whatever my son, just do whatever you want to my son, like, and that was their only concern. And then that was, I don't think Freeman would have gave off that impression as much as Coach Kelly did. Obviously Coach Kelly's a, the politician, CEO type leader as far as head coach. And then Freeman's more of a player's, seems like he wants to be more of a player's coach. I mean, obviously at Notre Dame, you can't be that much of a player's coach because you have to be a big time politician as well. But
Sure.
I think as far as like my family wise and like feeling wise, I think Freeman would have been, I think it would have been a no brainer for me if he'd came to my house and talked to me about going to Notre Dame. I think it'd have been like, all right, where I sign.
I love that. And CJ, I really want to hit this with you quick before I let you talk about the podcast a little bit and get you out of here. So we had a comment from Robert Matichek, who just asked, having made so many incredible plays, I'm curious if CJ has one that stands out as a particular favorite. Just rewatch some of his work. I mean, fire. Thank you so very much, guys. Great show. Is there a play like that, CJ? I mean, I know you made a lot of them in your career.
Number one is always going to be LSU, the jet sweep touchdown to tie the game.
Yep.
That's always going to be number one. It was just the timing of the game, everything. I feel like that touchdown like flipped our whole next season too. Like it started off that whole next season. And we knew how talented we were from that moment. I mean, from that game, but that whole, after that moment, it was like, yeah, we know how talented we are. Like we got this, like we can play against anybody.
It's a great pick. And to get you out of here again, Lucky Underdogs, Notre Dame football podcast, you can find on any podcast platform you frequent. Him and Devin Butler. CJ, if you just want to plug that a little bit, what are some of, I guess, the highlights of the show so far and just how excited you are to continue growing that brand?
Oh, yeah. So you can catch us on Twitter, Instagram at Lucky Underdogs. Me and Devin Butler. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter as well, precisely_22. But like I said a little bit earlier, we just like to highlight the guys who don't really get the media coverage, don't really get, don't always get the playing time, the guys who make the plays to help us win the game, but you might not really hear about them. So try to highlight those guys. It could be coaches as well. I think, this last week, I think Al Golden was our underdog of the week because just the game plan he put together. And so, that's kind of like how we've been doing it. We try to keep the guys, the Sam Hartmans and the Ben Moes. We try to keep them, they doing what they're supposed to do. As long as they're doing that, we don't got to talk about them. But but the guys who don't really get that much coverage and who working their tail off every week, we try to highlight those guys. So we try to make sure they're getting they love too.
So make sure to go follow the podcast right now. You can also follow CJ at CJ Prosise_22 on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days.
Yeah,
CJ, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you popping in, brother. We'll have to have you back on, but thank you so much for your perspective, man. This
Absolutely.
was really great.
Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
You too, man. Sean, CJ Prosise. I know that you obviously have had CJ on before, so you're not a stranger to his knowledge, but very interesting comments, man. I really just love the perspective because he is a guy that had a very interesting path to stardom, right? Multiple positions, 3-star recruit, Woodbury Forest to 3rd round NFL draft pick. Like he's a great symbol, in my opinion, of how do you make it as an underdog, right? As a under-recruited player. That's how you do it. You grind. And I think that he's a perfect example of that.
And his story, you can appreciate this. Being the draft expert that you are, it's doing something for the team. He made moves and position changes for the team. Going from safety to wide receiver, then going from wide receiver to running back, and he was pretty successful at all three. To be honest, he didn't really get the chance to show it at safety, but he was a pretty good player at all three. But I know for sure, because I've had conversations with him, I'm interested in seeing how you might think this plays into the recruiting, because recruits now think much further than recruits 10, 15 years ago. Like, high school seniors now are already thinking college football and that 3rd year in NFL. Like, they're thinking about the entire package. And he's always been open and honest about probably still being in the NFL if he had stayed at wide receiver.
Yeah.
or
I mean, he was
safe.
such a good athlete, Sean. It was always just about durability stuff, right? Like he just got beat up in Seattle. I mean, his body just couldn't take it. You know what I mean?
He was too small. He was too small, and he said he recognized it his first training camp. Like, yo, this is a totally different physicality.
Because people forget. I mean, he averaged like 5.7 yards per carry for Seattle before he got injured as a rookie. Like he was balling, man.
He was
and then
balling.
Durability killed his entire career. I mean, it really did. It's great advice, man. I always tell people this. One, if you are a running back and you can go to the NFL early, go. Just go. Go. Number two, if you want to play running back, don't. Like those are the two advices of playing running back, right? Like that's it, man. That's it. And he's a perfect example of that, obviously.
So, but every kid wants the ball in their hands, right?
For sure.
So that's the position where you feel like I'm going to get the ball in my hands the most, right? At least 15, 20 times a game. Yeah, but it's not for the faint of heart or the brittle bones.
It really isn't, man. It's a brutal game. I mean, Sean, I'll put it like this, and we'll move on to the next segment here, but the average NFL career is about 3-point-something years, right? On the NFL side. It's even less for running backs. Like it's even like the shelf life is just not great for every Adrian Peterson that lasts a long time and Frank Gore. There's guys that last 1 to 2 years because it's just like their body just can't take it, man. It just can't take it. So yeah, I do often wonder. That if CJ would have stuck at a different position, because he was a great athlete, man, he would have figured it out at either spot, right?
Yep.
He might still be playing. He might still be playing right now. He's like 29 years old, right? Like he's 29. I think he might still be playing. But either way, great interview. Gave us a lot of insight into recruiting and that side, and even took a shot at Brian Kelly. So he's welcome back on the podcast anytime. So
yo, I don't know if you saw the latest show that they had Jerron Jones on. It was literally 30 minutes.
I listened to part of it. Yeah.
If you want to hear Brian Kelly slander, it was almost like 15 to 20 minutes of it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I'm not that far in. I just got past the intros and everything. And I forgot. It's great story. I mean, great. It's a great podcast too, because I mean, Jerron Jones has gone from defensive tackle at Notre Dame. Now he's playing offensive tackle and back. It's a really cool story. So make sure to go listen to their podcast again. It's the Lucky Underdogs Notre Dame football podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere that you frequent a podcast. Make sure to go check out the podcast. It's really good. It's a very unique perspective, because it's not just they played at Notre Dame, they're doing a Notre Dame podcast. It's also, like he said, it's given a little bit of a perspective of some of the guys that maybe don't get the fanfare, don't get the pub that they may deserve to being a equal and important member of a football team. So make sure to go check out that podcast. Sean, we're going to get into some recruiting rankings next. Before we do, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, hit that notification bell. Make sure to share this podcast and sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Sean, so I don't know if you saw it. So ESPN had just put out a ranking last week.
Yep.
247 Sports had put out a new ranking yesterday. Actually, I'm sorry, reverse. 247 was last week. ESPN was yesterday. So I really wanted to break down a little bit of some of the movement of Notre Dame guys.
Yeah.
Want to talk about the good, because there is a lot of good on these lists. The puzzling is how I would kind of put it. And then I also want to give us an opportunity to really talk about some guys that we feel like are still being slept on. Like it's based on senior years. Like let's take a little bit of jump. So we're each going to present 3 players to the table at the end of this segment that we think should still be due for big recruiting boosts here. Let's start with 247, Sean, who is last week again. This was actually a really good one for Notre Dame. There's some that it's just like, man, it feels very anti-Notre Dame, but this one was far from anti-Notre Dame. I want to just work these one by one, and we'll talk about just kind of instant reactions to it. Like if it's fair, if it's earned, like we'll just work through it that way. Sean, my friend, once upon a time, there was a young man named Bryce Young who was an unranked player on 247 Sports. He was out of the 247 ranked players in the 2025 class.
Yeah.
In the next chapter of this story, last week, Bryce Young is now the number 73 overall player in the 2024 recruiting class, jumping from outside of the top 247 players to number 73. That's a pretty dang impressive jump, man. It's pretty impressive.
Look, I remember the initial conversations when he was being offered and he had just started coming to campus with his father. And I remember having conversations with you like, you know, I hope they just don't give him an offer just because, you know, his legacy. You know, Jerome Bettis Jr. was in. I mean, we had those conversations, right? And then all of a sudden we started to see more and more tape. We started to hear things, you know, over the summer from the circuit. And now this season, it's like, okay, Notre Dame has, let me tell you something.
Yes.
The one position that Notre Dame has literally recruited the best sleepers, in my opinion, is that rush in. Like to get Armel Mukam, Boubacar Traore, get those guys late. We've been hearing about them in practice since they arrived. Bryce Young. I'm sure we're going to get to Logan Thomas in a bit. Guys that are not top 50, top 25, but when you look at their talent, like you said, he's in the 70s now, and to make that jump, a lot of evaluators are seeing something that is very special. And, you know, you have to be, I won't say happy because no one's really done it for Notre Dame, but you have to be excited as a Notre Dame fan when it comes to players like Bryce Young and that position and that body type that Notre Dame is really going after and recruiting. So, man, well deserved. Bryce Young, well deserved.
Well, like you said, Sean, 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds with growth potential. I mean, there's a chance this kid's a 3-tech eventually. Like, there's a chance because he's just so big, man. And he's explosive. And he always had those explosive traits. But, like, as a junior, I would say he's more in the 6'4.5", 215, 220 pound range. Like, he was not nearly this big. He's had a massive grade. I will give 247 Sports credit here too, Sean. They made a massive jump here, obviously. But they made a complete overcorrection because they were like, dude, like he's been so good. It doesn't matter if he's jumping 200 something spots or whatever. Like he's been that dude this year. I mean, guys, again, I don't live in hyperbole, but this kid, I said it on the show, Sean. I think I did a solo show where I said I think that he could be a top 50 player when all is said and done if he continues to trend. Because he also just got invited to the All-American Bowl down in San Antonio, so he gets a chance to now go down there, show that he can do it against some of the best, because he just had 8 tackles and 2 sacks last week against David Sanders Jr., who is the top offensive tackle in 2025, a legit 5-star player.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he has taken his game to a whole other level, and it's been great to see. And I'm very happy that 247 was like, all right, because I actually don't blame them. I don't blame him for not being in the top 247 after his junior year. Like, he wouldn't have been in mine, to be honest. He wouldn't have been in mine at all.
That's pretty honest and fair.
Yes.
To say that. I agree.
It is, because then we'll get the ESPN where like they moved them up, but like it was very minuscule, right? And I'm just like, how is it minuscule based from junior to senior film so far? Like that jump has to be crazy. But conversation in a little bit there. Kedron Young, Sean, another story here. There was once a great running back in the state of Texas named Kedron Young, who was vastly underrated. I think he was a 3-star on 247 Sports at one point. Out of the top 247, he's now up to the number 101 player in the country. Notre Dame now has, let me do the math real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they have 6 players in the top 100, and they almost have 7 because Kedron Young is in that 101 in the 2024 class right now. Kedron Young has had a crazy season so far, man. I feel bad for him. Lufkin, Texas, obviously. Sean, he went from, so he was playing, obviously he's a running back, but their quarterback got banged up, and I think their backup got banged up as well. So he was had to play quarterback one game pretty recently for Lufkin, Texas. But he is really, really good, and I feel like he's starting to get the shine now, obviously.
You know I love my city. I love my city.
Yep.
So I was really pulling for Darian Dupree to end up at Notre Dame. And then Kedron Young jumped on the scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I can't even be mad. Like literally, Kedron Young might be the first person I showed his film to Malik, and Malik was like first 2 clips, Malik's like, oh my God. Like, dude, where is he from? Like, can we get him on the roster now? Like,
yeah,
just the power, the patience, the vision, the speed once he gets out into the field on the second and third. Look,
the speed's underrated, man. The speed's
very
impressive,
underrated,
brother. It's
because
impressive.
you look at him being real stout, and you don't expect it. Look, this guy, and someone asked me like, man, yo, is there a Notre Dame comp? And I'm like, running style, maybe a Dexter Williams, because Dex was also like, once he got in the open field, like surprised me with speed. But Dex had like a thicker body.
Yeah.
When you looked at him. But I love this kid. This kid to me deserves to be easily in the top 100.
Oh yeah,
easily.
I would agree.
The competition he plays against, and his, like you said, his senior film, his junior film was great.
His junior film was great. I haven't really seen too many running backs that I would just flat out say were better than Kedron Young in 2024. I really haven't, man. There's some good backs, of course, but like he's very good. I kind of got Jonas Gray vibes. Remember Jonas? Like it gave me a little bit, because I think Kedron's gonna be a big back, man. Apparently he's up to like 220 pounds now as well. So like he might be 225, 230 before all is said and done. And I always wondered, Jonas Gray's last year, man, he didn't get hurt there going into the NFL, because then he missed remember when he ran for like 200 yards for the Patriots, but then he missed like the team meeting the next day, and then he got cut or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, that kid was talented though, man.
Smart.
He was talented.
Because he had that big game against Pitt. I think his last year, and then, like you said, the nagging injuries.
Yep. No, yeah, man. He was stupid talented. And I remember he was kind of a late breakout guy in his Notre Dame career. He was balling, got hurt, and then he did really well for the Patriots in limited opportunities, and then obviously, went awry a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunate. But great football player, there's no doubt. We don't want to spend too much on these next couple. Well, actually, on the next one, Sean, because it's a very minuscule jump. But Cam Williams went up 6 spots. He's now the number 46 player in the 247 ranking. How this kid's not a consensus 5-star because he's a 5-star now on the industry ranking. But how is he not a 5-star on every single platform? Like, I don't understand what we're missing here. At what point are you just going to be like, yeah, Cam's really flipping good, man? Like, at what point are we going to do that? I just don't understand what we're waiting for some of these rankings.
And I hope he plays in one of the toughest IHSA divisions.
Yeah. And he's doing it every week, man.
That conference battle out there comes down to like the last game each and every year. And his team he's not on one of the best teams. So when you see him dominating teams that are really good and going deep into the state playoffs, that shows you, like you said, he is without a doubt a 5-star receiver. It should have happened a long time ago. And, maybe it's the Notre Dame commit thing.
I tend not to think for this ranking, though, because we're seeing, Bryce Young with a huge bump, Kedron Young with a huge bump. Kingston Viliamu-Asa, who I was going to talk about next, jumped for 21 spots to number 66. Gerby Lambert was up 36 spots to number 81 in the country. So, like, a lot of guys had massive jumps for whatever reason. Just like we're just kind of inching Cam along, you know what I mean? For some reason, I don't know why that is, but that kid's a star, man. He's an absolute star. But don't want to talk too much about Gerby Lambert. I haven't been able to see his senior film. He doesn't have any posted on Huddle, so like I haven't seen him. He was really good on junior film though, so like that's cool. Kingston Viliamu-Asa, Sean, I don't know how much you've seen of him, man, but like he looks even more athletic this year, which is like.
And they have some huge wins against nationally ranked teams.
Did you see their game against Notre Dame this past week?
Yes.
28-0. Like
yes.
What? 28-0.
I think they've been on ESPN, I think twice.
Yeah.
And the defense as a whole is playing fantastic, but him as the leader of that defense. And I've never seen a kid, maybe other than Drake Bowen, seem super happy to be a commit at Notre Dame. And it goes back to like how he made the decision, and like being at peace with it. He is a fantastic. Does he have the talent to come in and play? Yeah.
Yeah, he
But
does.
it's some dudes in front of him. It's
there
like,
are.
See, that's a great thing.
Yep.
That's what you want. That's the depth you want.
Sean, I'm thinking about the future of the Mike linebacker position could have Drake Bowen, maybe Nolan Ziegler eventually moves over to Mike. I know he's more of a will right now. And then also having Kingston Viliamu-Asa come into campus as well. Like that is some stupid Mike depth right there, man. That's going to be really, really good. So, but I wouldn't, despite that, Sean, because you make a great point. Like there's a lot of people in front of Kingston going into next year. But like, would you be shocked if Kingston's in the 2 deep next year and he's just playing because he's that good? Like I wouldn't be shocked at all personally. I don't know.
If Al Golden is still here, I would venture to say he's going to lean towards
veterans.
Yeah.
Sure.
But, if Al Golden gets a job somewhere else and someone else comes in, and, at that point, it's open auditions.
Yep.
When you get a new DC. So.
And he's a really intelligent kid as well. So I don't think that the transition from high school defense to college defense is going to be like this overwhelming thing for Kingston. I feel like he'll be able to handle it very well. We already talked about Gerby Lambert's moving up a ton of spots, 36 points. Sean, the 2 head scratchers, and I just wanted to get your opinion on these both. You can go to either one you want, go to both if you want, whatever you want to do here. Logan Thomas, who was formerly out of the state of Texas, is now at St. Edward in the state of Ohio, back-to-back state championships. He dropped in the rankings to number 218. I believe he was high 200s, but he dropped a little bit to 218. Micah Gilbert, who was ranked in the 200s, is now completely out of the 247 rankings. And that's the one that I have the most distaste for because Micah Gilbert's been phenomenal as a senior. I don't know how you watch his junior film compared to a senior film and be like, let's drop him. I don't know exactly where you got, but like you can go to whatever one you want on that one, Sean. Those are just the 2 head scratchers for me.
You know what's so crazy? Someone, I think they put a mailbag question up here that we're going to get to later. Micah Gilbert's safety film is bananas.
It's very good. Yeah.
Like he's playing single high safety and like high pointing balls, intercepting balls. You can see the run after the catch ability. But as a wide receiver, he blocks like crazy. He catches the ball. He's physical. He breaks tackles. He's great in small spaces and making people miss. I don't get it either. I don't know what else they want to see from the kid. Logan Thomas, to me, was the one guy before the season started that I expected to move up. Right? And maybe it was the move from Texas to Ohio. I don't know.
But he's playing against some good teams at Ohio, man.
He's playing against some really good teams.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand what these evaluators are looking for.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I think to add to the Logan Thomas conversation, because I think that's a great point, is that you would expect that he would have risen somewhere. But then I look at the ESPN ranking, and he also fell 8 spots to number 239 player of the country. I've watched Logan Thomas and the games that he has had so far and the highlights and everything. And I'm perplexed, man. I'm perplexed. For me, he was an incredibly raw player as a junior who was just winning off of traits. He's still doing that a little bit as a senior, but he's gotten bigger and more athletic. And they've just put his hand in the ground and be like, hey, dude, go get the quarterback, which I think is better for his evaluation eventually, right? I don't get this one, man. I don't. Like a couple of these, I'm like, all right, don't agree with it, but I understand it, right? Like Peter Jones is one that we'll talk about from the ESPN ranking. Like, he dropped a little bit. And it's just like, he's a tough, gritty offensive lineman in the state of Pennsylvania. I understand why people don't gravitate towards him. But a defensive end that was very good at a Texas high school in a high division, now playing at a power in the state of Ohio in St. Edward and dominating at St. Edward. I'm just confused. I don't understand the Logan Thomas one. That's one that's really kind of perplexing to me.
If you go up a few spots, you'll see Jacob Oden, a safety that's committed to Michigan. That was a long time recruit for Notre Dame. And dude, I've spoken to Jacob's dad. I've spoken to Jacob multiple times. Was locked into his film. He's nowhere near the athlete of Logan Thomas. He's just not. So to have him 6 spots above Logan Thomas lets me know that either there's very little objectivity amongst those evaluators, or they have a set of standards that just don't add up. They just don't, because athletically, he's so far superior to Jacob Oden. And I like Jacob Oden as a recruit. But Logan Thomas shouldn't be behind him on this list.
Logan, I just send a shout out to Logan Thomas, Sean, because he has really taken a massive step as a senior, in my opinion. He's gotten longer. He's gotten more explosive. He's starting to fill out his frame a lot more. He looked honestly a little bit, and again, not as good a prospect as what Keon Keeley was, but he's wearing that number 9 and he's super long. Like, he looked a little bit like Keon Keeley based upon some of the film I've watched as a senior. Again, not saying he's as good as Keon Keeley. I'm not saying that, but he's certainly better than the number 239 player in the country.
Look,
like, he's certainly better than that.
I mentioned Jacob Oden. If you go to 229, Brandon Davis Swain is at 229. Brandon Davis Swain is much better than 229. Like, what are we talking about? Like, he was committed to Notre Dame, switched. I think he's committed to Colorado now. And these are both dominant guys that can rush the passer and do a lot coming off the edge. And to have him that low, especially Logan Thomas, who has pretty much shown that he can dominate in 2 of the best prep states when it comes to high school football, Ohio and Texas, there's no explanation as to why Logan Thomas should be that low. None. Because I think Brandon Davis Swain is underrated at 229.
I agree. I would agree with that.
So
it doesn't. I don't get it either, man. It's just very perplexing. I'm gonna go work through Sean, because we have to transition to ESPN now, these rankings, before we go into our evaluations, right? ESPN is not good to Notre Dame, folks. Like I told you, because again, 247, whole lot of good in that ranking for Notre Dame. I mean, Bryce Young crashing the party at number 73, Keidron Young up to 101 after not being ranked. Cam Williams moves up. Kingston Viliamu-Asa moves up 21 spots. Gerby Lambert moves up 36 spots to number 81 in the country. A whole lot of good in that one, right? And they're one of the few that aren't consistent with just dropping CJ Carr for no reason at all. So he stayed put at 36. I mean, it was a 247 Sports was a very positive ranking to Notre Dame. It was very positive. ESPN, Sean? No, this wasn't positive Notre Dame at all. Let's start here. I think only 2 players moved up, and one of them are very minuscule move up. Okay. So CJ Carr down 1 spot to number 36. So he moved down, even though he's having a great senior year. Make it make sense to me. Keidron Young moved down in their ranking, not 4 spots. He's now number 221 in the country on the ESPN ranking. Cam Williams, he moved up 2 spots. He's now number 49 in the country. Micah Gilbert down 4 spots, Sean, number 256 in the country. Peter Jones is completely now out of the top 300 prospects in the 2024 class. Logan Thomas, despite having a dynamic senior season so far, dropped 8 spots to number 239. Bryce Young was previously not in the top 300. He's up to number 219 now, so he got into the ranking. But again, he's 219. You watched that film and said 219? I don't know about that one, sir. And then Kingston Villiamoasa did move up. He was the biggest winner of these rankings, Sean. He went from number 50. He went up from number 157 to number 100 on the ESPN rankings. So he moved up 57 spots. So the positive is Kingston Villiamoasa, ESPN thinks he's flipping, I guess, from Notre Dame at some point because he's moved up 57 spots, man. That's a pretty good jump.
The CJ Carr thing has always been weird to us.
Yeah.
You know,
especially on three. On three is not a fan of CJ Carr. He's almost the number 200 player in the country for on three for whatever reason. So,
and most people I talked to that were out there in California this summer for the Elite 11, the range was, he is about as solid as you're going to get at the position. And he's a little bit better than I thought.
Yeah.
So no one out there was like, oh man, no, I'm not impressed. So
apparently there was one person for all three that wasn't impressed, but
right.
Whatever.
But stuff like that. And then you get Keidron Young. And there's, look, I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
We get kids that get offers from Notre Dame. We have questions, right? Either watching this sophomore film, the junior film, and then all of a sudden we see another film and it's like, oh, is this the same kid? So, I'm not hating on evaluators because I understand the process is not an exact science.
Scouting is an art, not a science. You are 100% correct. Yes.
No. And beauty is literally in the eye of the beholder. And it's like, I just watched a 30 for 30 just to kind of connect this on the scout that found Fernando Valenzuela.
Yep.
Like literally down in Mexico in a small town playing like Mexican League baseball. Like, and for him to be able to watch him against lesser competition, but yet still be able to see, he translates. As an evaluator, that's the difficulty, right?
Yep.
And like I said, I don't want to hate on the people that do this for a living and this is their job and say they don't take it seriously. But you have to have objectivity, and you just can't watch one piece of film and never go back to the kid. Or see CJ Carr and say, okay, I know who he is, so there's no reason for me to continue to watch him to see if he develops. And a lot of times I think because of the volume of tape and film, I think this can happen a lot of times where, you don't stick with a kid and watch the progression. And some other kids you do stick to. See, Bryce Young, you stick to him because he's the up and comer.
Sure.
So you want to make sure that you lock in with him because everybody else is locking in with him. He's buzzing on the circuit like, oh man, this Bryce Young kid, he's really coming on. Everybody wants to have that story. But the kids that have been there, been solid, you have to be disciplined enough as an evaluator to really stay with it and stay on task and give them the same opportunity that you're giving to the guys that might be fast risers or their names are really popping in the circuit. So, just to connect that to what you were talking about, it's not an exact science, but I think there are some people that are far more fair and dig in a little bit deeper than some others.
Yep, I would agree with that. I just sometimes some of this stuff just doesn't sit right with me personally, and it's not a personal thing at all. I just don't personally, because I would love to actually just sit down with some of the people that do these rankings and just literally like pick their brain and just watch film with them. I would actually love to do that. I just don't understand how seeing what I've seen from Logan Thomas and Micah Gilberts specifically, and even Keidron Young to a degree, but like those first two more than that, how you don't come away and say they've gotten a lot better. I don't know how you don't take that away. I mean, because that's what this tells me, Sean, is that you thought Micah Gilbert on both rankings, that both ESPN and 247 Sports are basically telling me Micah Gilbert is not as good as we thought he was. And I watch a senior film and I'm like, Micah Gilbert's way better than I thought he was. To be very honest, like I liked him, right? Like I thought he was a top 250 kid when Notre Dame got him. You know, had some injury stuff, but really precise, detailed, like cool, good player. As a senior, I think he's a top 150 kid. I think he's top 150. Like he's been really, really good for Charlotte Catholic. I don't know, man. It's been weird. It's been very strange to kind of just look at. So I'm more curious than anything. I'm just curiosity has been definitely hits. And I guess that's the whole point of rankings, right? Is that you're making people curious so they read it, right? Yeah. I guess. So it worked. ESPN 247. We spent a whole segment of a show talking about it. Congratulations. Again, I'm not calling you guys clickbait, but like you got us to click. So that's cool. You got it. Sean, let's go now to finish up the segment. We're each going to name 3 players that we believe should be risers in the 2024 recruiting class. We'll go one by one here, Sean. Would you like to go first? You want me to go first? You're the esteemed member of this panel, so you can pick whatever you would like to do, sir. You can pick.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Almost talked about him a little bit in like 5 minutes ago.
Sure.
But Jack Larson to me is, for 3 straight years, he has been the best playmaker on offense for his team. Has absolutely incredible hands. And not just incredible hands when he's open. I'm talking about incredible hands when he's draped with defenders. And you're talking about going up, snagging balls out of the air, making a play on the ball. His blocking. This year, he's a force at defensive end, getting sacks. He's just a fabulous athlete, man. And from the time he committed to Notre Dame as a junior, coming out of that junior day, with CJ Carr and Cam Williams, he's kind of been the stepchild of that trio. Like you got CJ Carr, you got Cam Williams. Like moving forward, Notre Dame fans literally might look back at that day in that camp as the start of the evolution of the Notre Dame offense. That Irish invasion and that trio, looking at each other and saying, we're coming. That could be what we look at 2 years down the line and say, that's where it all started. Like those 3 right there. And for him to be treated like the stepchild, in my opinion, especially by evaluators, is absolutely insane because all he does is make plays, especially in the clutch. You go look at fourth quarter games that they played over the last 2 years. He's always making the game-winning touchdown, the game-winning catch that set up the touchdown. He's always in the mix at the end of the game.
Yep. Well, and Sean, to Jack Larson's point too, is that his senior year, he's also created a lot more big plays than what he did as a junior. I think he had like 50-something catches for like 600-something yards. So he averaged like 12 yards a catch, I think, as a junior, which, is fine. But this year, I think he's averaging like 18 yards a catch or something like that, man. He's got like almost 500 yards and only like 28 receptions this year. So he's stretching the defense a lot more, which is good. So
that's what a new quarterback.
Yeah, I know, because the Sean Boyle kids at West Virginia, like he was a pretty good quarterback for him, and he's still producing, man. I think that is the great. I think that's the great evidence of how good of a player Jack Larson is. It's kind of like Jaden Greathouse as a senior, because you remember, obviously, he lost Cole Klubnik, to go in Cade Klubnik. I almost call him Cole. Cade Klubnik to Clemson, and yet Jaden Greathouse was still really productive. Not quite as much as Cade, but like that changes makes sense, right? Like that makes sense that his production is going to go down a little bit, but yeah, I think Jack's a really good player, man. Very underrated to your point. He's just good. I mean, what are you going to say about it? Like, he's just a good player. I already talked about one, Sean, so I'm not going to go in nauseam about it. Micah Gilbert's one for me, 100%. I don't get this, how he's ranked in the 200s pretty much consistently everywhere. He, at 6'2", 205 pounds, he went from interesting physical wide receiver as a junior to a explosive technician as a senior, in my opinion. This kid never had 500 yards in a receiving season during high school. So far this year, Sean, think he has almost 800 yards on 60 receptions in like 8 games or something like that, in 7 games. He has been tremendous as a senior. And he's doing it everywhere, man. I'm seeing him run routes from the slot. I'm seeing him win outside the numbers. I'm seeing him win after the catch. He's a really good player. And he looks more explosive than he did as a junior. He looks healthy, which I think is the big reason why I would bump. I mean, he's a top 150 kid, in my opinion, today. I don't need to see any more senior film. Like, he is a top 150 kid today. We talk about Cam Williams so much, and for very good reason. Cam's a 5-star, in my opinion. But let's not lose sight of the fact Micah Gilbert's really dang good, folks, and he's coming as well. And Logan Saldate ain't too bad himself. That wide receiver crew coming in 2024 is really good, and Micah Gilbert is a big reason for that. Your number 2, Sean. Your number 2 player that you want to talk about.
So I'm going to give some love to Sean Sevillano.
Okay.
Because I know the timing of him committing and how it lines up with what took place with Justin Scott. Kind of, you know how someone signs and you're still befuddled and upset by this recruitment over here. So it's like, all right, like, whatever. And then all of a sudden you start paying a little more attention. And it's like, okay, kid. And the one thing I can say about this kid is that he works extremely hard. He's a kid that's working really hard to get better. And if he can come in, and also, I feel like his relationship with other players down there in Florida has kind of impacted other people that might end up at Notre Dame in the recruiting cycle. So I want to give some love to Sean Sevillano Jr. I really do. I think he is underrated because I think he's gotten better than what he showed. I think he's gotten better. I'm not saying he took this huge jump, but he's been better. He's better. So I want to show him some love. I don't know if he should be in the top 250 or 300, anything like that. But if we're just talking about, you know, kids that I think, because I can start myself, I should have showed them more love, and I didn't. And then when I started giving them more attention, I recognized, okay, I see why they liked him. They offered him.
Yep,
I get it.
Sean, I talked about him. I actually did a piece for the premium subscribers on the message board about Sean Sevillano a few weeks ago. And I kind of phrased it like this, and I'm curious if you agree or disagree on this one, but I phrased it, I think that our perception of what Sean Sevillano was morphed because of the Justin Scott debacle, because of the Owen Wafel weirdness of like that commitment. And I think that we got an impression in our mind that this was Justin Scott. This was Justin Scott's replacement. But in actuality, it wasn't Justin Scott's replacement. He was just a player they really liked on the interior defensive line. And I think that what we really need to understand is, what is he going to be asked to do on the football field? He's not going to ask to be Justin Scott. He's not going to ask to be a penetrating playmaking 3 technique. He is just a hardworking nose with a great motor that is going to create issues for opposing offensive linemen. That's what he's being asked to do. And I think the big thing about him as a senior is junior year, he beat up on some bad competition, in my opinion. Not great. Senior year, they've been playing against some good teams, and he still has 43 tackles for loss this year and 9 sacks, which is just outrageous numbers. So, yeah, I think Sean Sevillano deserves a lot more credit than what he was given when he first committed to Notre Dame. I would agree 100%. Speaking of underrated front 7 players, Sean, had to go here, man. Bodie Cahoon, linebacker. Patrick Henry, Roanoke, Virginia. 6'2", 220 pounds. Originally was committed to Ohio State to play lacrosse. Now obviously committed to Notre Dame to play football. Sean, I'm going to read you a stat here. Ready? My favorite stat of any player today. 127 tackles in 7 football games. I'll say it again. 127 tackles, 7 football games. That comes out to my mathematicians out there to over 18 tackles per game so far as a senior for Bodie Cahoon. His first year as a full-time linebacker. I think that people underrated Bodie Cahoon from the start because He'd only played 5 football games as a linebacker. He was a safety before that. We didn't appreciate that this kid is 6'2", 220 pounds, runs 4.54 in the 40. Very good athlete. The game has slowed down for him as a senior, Sean, in my opinion. Now Bodie is taking his game to a whole other level, which is great to see. So Bodie Cahoon having a tremendous year. Again, folks, I'm going to say it again. 127 tackles in 7 games. If he makes it to, let's say, a second round of the playoffs, Sean, let's just say second round, that means that he would have over 200 tackles on the season. Over 200 tackles on the season, which would be absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So, Bodie Cahoon is my number 2. Sean, you're number 3 and final player for the segment.
I thought about going with my heart,
Okay.
with someone that I thought from the time he committed was undervalued. Then I thought about someone that has played pretty good at the safety position. And then I thought about an offensive lineman that we've already discussed dropping. But I'm going to stick to my heart, man, because I think this kid has been undervalued ever since he got into class early. And that's Carson Hobbs. Like, from the time Carson Hobbs committed, I felt like, yo, this is, when you watch him play, it's like, yo, this is the next Benji. Like, you rarely see a kid early on, sophomore, like playing bump and run. Like, no, this is what we play, right?
Yep.
And a great high school program, so you don't have to worry about, and it's the state of Ohio, so you don't have to worry about whether or not the competition is real. But for me, even off the field, I think he's undervalued because so much attention in the 24 class has been given to the offensive side because the leaders of the class are on that side. I think he has been one of the leaders on the defensive side of that class that got in early, was talking to guys and was saying, yo, come join us. And it was either him or Benny Powell. Because I think what I've seen from Tatum, Benny Powell this year has been really good and needed, because we've been talking about the safety position, right? And what are we going to do? Is it Kennedy Urlacher and Powell, and who else is going to come? Those 2 guys for me were up there, and the third person was Peter Jones. That was my third guy. But I'm going to go ahead and say Carson Hobbs, because even when you look at the rankings of how they have him listed in the class, on 3 or 247, he's like at the very bottom. And I'm like, in my opinion,
he had a weird ranking too. He had a weird ranking too. Sorry to cut you off, because he was a 4-star by one platform at one point in the offseason, and then they pushed him down from a 4-star. I'm like, he hasn't played football yet. I'm kind of confused.
I don't get it. Oh, we made a mistake. We should have given him that star. Like, where does that come from? Like, you elevate a kid, obviously, because either you've seen him on the circuit over the summer and the spring, or you've watched his film and made the decision, we need to bump him up. So it's been really strange, like you said, because even when I saw him, when he first committed, I was like, okay, he's going to be a 4-star. Like, okay, they got him a 3-star. I knew the star was going to come. I just didn't expect that they would take it away
without him actually playing a football game, right? That's my thing. Is like, if you don't think he's a 4-star, leave him as a 3-star. Just don't. Why give him a star and then take it away? And he didn't even play a game of football. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. It's really strange to me. But that's a conversation for another day. My last guy, Sean, you mentioned him already. I was actually thinking about doing Anthony Knapp, because I think Anthony Knapp's done a lot of great things as a senior. But I'm going to go with Tabron Benny Powell out of Lakota West. I'm going to go with it here, man. I was the same high school as Ben Minnick. Yep.
I understand why.
Look, man, here's where it was, Sean. He was in contact with the staff. He came to the Irish Invasion this offseason. He got his offer, committed within the next couple of days, and he was a part of the Notre Dame class. At that point, full transparency, I didn't understand why he was a take so early. Didn't understand it. I was like, I think that might be a little bit of I think you might be struggling a little bit, and that might be why that's a take for you. After seeing his senior film so far, I get it. I understand why Chad Bowden and this recruiting staff liked Tabron Benny-Powell. He's not just been good as a senior. He's been really, really good as a senior so far, man. Looks a whole lot more comfortable in space than I thought he would. He's really physical. He's actually pretty explosive, getting in and out of his pedal as well, man. Like, that kid's going to be a good football player, I think. I think that he is going to be a good football player for Notre Dame. Again, still not saying a star player, but a player that I did not expect to be a guy that I would ever kind of turn the corner on, unfortunately. But I have. I think that he is severely underrated as far as a player just in the 2024 class for Notre Dame. Tabron Benny-Powell, he deserves to be at Notre Dame. He deserves it. So, yeah, man, that's my last guy. So, it's a good list, Sean. It's a good list.
He was almost my third. I was just being loyal to a guy that I liked from the time he committed to Notre Dame. And I love both of them. So I totally understand what you're saying. Look, just to kind of, if you go watch, I don't know if people understand this, because it's something that was taught to me by people that evaluate. When you evaluate the defensive back position, I mean, speed is something that you just see. Either guys have makeup speed or they don't. But when you see young men in high school playing a certain, and it's not just defensive back, Ryan, you know this. You talk about Bodie Cahoon and the instincts at the position, not just the physical talent. See, that's the first thing that grabbed me about Drake Bourne and Jaden Osbury in the spring.
Yep.
They might not know more than the starters. Heck, I don't know the 40s at this point, but I know they're the most instinctual linebackers in the program, in my opinion. Just playing the position, they're the most instinctual. Now, you talk about both, same thing. You don't stack up tackles like that.
Yep.
Kingston, you don't play like that unless you are highly instinctive at the position. Because you can put an athlete at any position, right? Maris Leofow is a heck of an athlete at linebacker. Doesn't exactly have the best instincts. Remember Asmar Bilal?
I do
remember how he shocked us that last year?
Yep.
And we were like,
game seemed to slow down for him. It was weird, man. It was really weird.
Man, before that, no instincts.
Zero.
For the position, right?
Yep. And so much so, Sean, they're like, you got to go play rover away from the action because we don't trust your eyes to be close to the action. I mean, honestly, you really didn't. So
that's a fact. If you watch Carson Hobbs film, you might not be impressed with a lot of things. The kid is extremely patient as a defensive back, and that is vitally important. Vitally important.
He trusts himself. He trusts himself.
And watch how he stays in the pocket of the receiver. That he doesn't panic. And this is traits like that.
Yep.
Is very nuanced to the position. So you might watch his film like, oh man, I'm not really impressed. He doesn't seem that super fast. Yeah, okay. He's nuanced and he plays the position.
Yep.
And
he also just had really nice track numbers this past year as well. So like, I'm still curious if when that, because I think it's starting to peak in there, but like I still think there's a level of speed that Carson can get to on the field that we haven't seen yet. So yeah.
Most kids do as they get older. Stronger.
Yes. Yep. Oh man, I wish because your mind and your body don't like become in sync until later for whatever reason, right? And I mean, Sean, I remember it it was like 2 years after I graduated high school. I was just like, dude, I'm not a better athlete than I was then. I just understand how my body works now. You know what I mean? Like I just understood it a lot more. So I got faster. It wasn't even a development thing. It was just strictly like knowing your body. And it comes later for some people. So hopefully it kicks in at some point. I think it will. But
and
so
you probably mentally,
yeah,
you probably were free.
Yes.
Whatever you needed to know, you knew. So now you could just play.
I never, as a linebacker, I always was just concerned about my run fits and what gaps were covered and what gaps will not be covered, and whether I was reading guards or whether I was reading flow. That was all I was ever concerned about. And then luckily in college, pretty early, I learned about coverages, right? I learned about what guys behind me are doing and what their responsibilities are. And that opened up a whole other world for me, Sean. I'm like, oh, that's why I'm going to that spot. Like I knew what zone I was supposed to drop into. I know I was supposed to be a hook curl or curl flat defender, but I had no idea why, right? Like I had no idea why. I just would go there because someone told me to go there, right? Like my coach was like, you have curl flat. Cool. I'll have curl flat. But I didn't understand why I had curl flat, right? It's the process of understanding that's why I had that responsibility. That's why I had it, you know? And so, yeah, man, I agree completely. I mean, that comes. And that's why I always like talking to the defensive backs, man, because they know where everyone is supposed to be out on the field. They know every single player, quarterbacks as well, obviously. They know where everyone is supposed to be on the field. So,
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Going into games,
how
many defenses would you say you guys had to call? Like 5 to 10?
As far, are you talking about coverages? Or are you talking
about? These are the plays we're going to call. For this particular game.
So I mean, we weren't super exotic. So like in college, we would do a 4-2-5, and then we would have a nickel and a dime package. So like 4-2-5, we would have 4-3 personnel. So like that overhang was a Sam.
Damn.
But then you would go nickel. So like that overhang would just come out of the game, and a nickel would go in the game.
Yeah.
And then we would have a dime look where one of the linebackers would come off the field. So you would just have one true linebacker on the field, and then you would have an extra defensive back, and then you would just have your goal line package. So there was 3 different packages, I guess, or actually 4 different packages technically. We were a heavy, like a traditional 4-2-5 as far as like umbrella coverage. So like we rolled to a lot of single high stuff. So like cover 3, cover 1. We did some 4, but like not a ton. So there were probably like 3 to 4 different coverages that we would run typically. And then, but then blitz packages, if you throw that stuff in, it's a lot. It's a lot at that point, you know. It's like we would have different blitz packages just for specific teams, obviously, as far as like where they wanted to attack. So it's a lot, man. There's a lot of mental process.
The reason I asked is because we recently spoke to Shane Walton, who played under Bob Davie, who was multiple defenses, a lot on the plate, and he switched up and Tyrone Willingham came in, right?
Yep.
But he said when Tyrone Willingham came in with Kent Bear, who wasn't that good at DC, by the way, if you guys remember. But he said, man, literally, we would go into every game with 5 calls defensively. That was it. 5 calls.
Yeah.
And we knew how to play the heck out of those 5 calls. And he said that's why that defense flew around that year. In his first year, because it wasn't exotic. Here are the 5 calls. This is what we're doing, man.
And when you have dudes, that works out, man. Like
and he was like, he said Brock Williams and I knew we were man to man. We knew that, you know, and that's kind of the benefit that we're seeing. Like when you have guys like Cam Wood, when those outside guys can play man to man. Man, I want to be Al Golden this year, Ryan. I would love to call plays this year. Are you kidding me?
Well, Sean, I know people complain about Al Golden being like too blitz happy and stuff, but like when you have those corners, I don't blame him. Like I don't blame him. I mean, man, if you want to be a heavy blitz team, like man coverage is like your bread and butter, obviously, right? Because like doing zone blitzes is like it can get really funky sometimes. Because then you're like, why is that guy vacated his zone? Where is that guy supposed to be? And you're just like, there was a miscommunication there. That's what it was. Man to man's a lot easier to communicate who's got who's got this guy, who's got that guy, who's leaving, that type of stuff, right? So, I mean, I think maybe it's a little bit too much sometimes. I've said that in the past, but like, I don't blame Al Golden for having his thought process in that sense, right? Like, I have trouble sometimes getting 4 home. I'm going to blitz extra guys because you know what? I got 2 man-to-man corners on the outside that can play it all over the place, right? I mean, so I don't blame him for that. I really don't. So, yeah.
Who do you see Benny Powell? When Benny Powell is at Notre Dame, who is he focused on? Who do you see him in this defense being?
I think that, I mean, like early on, I think he's going to look at Xavier Watts a lot, right? Like that's going to be his guy. But like eventually, I think that Tabron Benny Powell might be a rover eventually. I really do. I think he might be a rover. Because I think he'll be a good one, man. Because like he's got a good frame, right? Like he's listed at like 6'1", 190 something right now. I guarantee he's like 215 at some point. Guarantee. Like he's pretty skinny still, right? Like I would not be surprised if he was a rover at the end of the day. Would not be surprised at all about that. Because I also think that that's where Notre Dame's defense is kind of going a little bit. You know, like kind of they're more body type. They're more Jalen Sneed body type at rover and then nickel at rover. Like that's more their spot. Like I think Jack Kaiser at rover is going to become a little obsolete for Notre Dame. I don't think that's where they want to trend as far as that position, but just my opinion. So, well, Sean, that's going to do it for a little bit of our recruiting ranking talk, man. That went a completely different way, which is great. That's why I know it drives some people crazy, Sean, but I don't plan things out as well as sometimes because I like organic conversation, right? I like kind of just seeing where conversations go and seeing what comes of it. So make sure you hit that like button, folks, before we get to the mailbag. Make sure you subscribe, notification bell, and make sure you give us a 5-star review on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. We will be back here in a second to talk to you all about a little bit of a mailbag you guys have been contributing to throughout the duration of this show. Sean, we have a lot of questions and not a ton of time. So let's get rocking and rolling here, man. We have a question from Ant_VR says, Ryan, any updates on Caleb Beasley? Been pretty silent, wondering if the ship has sailed. And I know that Notre Dame is still in contact with Caleb Beasley. It's just, look, he was supposed to come to Ohio State originally. Then the next biggest step would have been maybe come to USC instead, right? You're running out of home games to get Caleb Beasley or any other recruit to come to. I mean, that's kind of where it is, right? So I don't feel good about it. I haven't felt good about it for the last month or so. I've been continuously saying it on the show. I just don't see it happening as of today unless something dramatically changes. If you don't get Caleb Beasley to campus, it's not going to happen. Just flat out, it's not going to happen. And Sean, you are running out of ability to get him to campus because we're running home games here, man. I mean, we're already halfway through the season right now. So more than halfway, 2/3 of the way. So, and
you don't have any more big home games. Yeah, you're done with the big home games. So, maybe it's an inconspicuous Saturday that he shows up at.
Maybe he shows up for Pitt. I don't know. Maybe he shows up for Pitt next week. I mean, who knows? Ivan Taylor is coming for Pitt, the 2025 safety who Notre Dame loves a lot. So it's not unreasonable to think that they could still make it happen. But my point is that the further we get with him not taking a visit, I don't feel good about it. That's all.
And I mean, just follow me for a second, Double R.
Yes. Yep.
If I'm him, I probably would want to come to a smaller weekend than to have it be really big that I'm at Ohio State and USC. You know what I'm saying? I
get it. Yeah.
Sneak up, smaller weekend.
Get a little bit more one-on-one time with coaches. Yeah. I can see that.
And not have it be, a big deal.
Paparazzi everywhere. Yeah. I can get that, man. Yeah. And because a lot of guys he's not a very outward person, right? As far as wanting his business to be out there. So it's possible, man. It's possible. But yeah, the further we get along though, I feel about it. I mean, I don't feel anything about it right now, to be honest. I just don't see it happening, but we shall see. Sexy Man, Sean. I love some of the names in this chat, by the way. Sexy Man says, any idea what that Deuce Knight stay tuned hint is all about on X. Yes, sexy man, I'm not going to tell you what, obviously, but I do indeed know what stay tuned means for Mr. Deuce Knight, and you all might know sometime soon. We shall see. Sean, we had a question from Mark Avalone who said, "Salt on Elijah Rushing's interview after Arizona decommitment. He said Notre Dame was a possibility in his top 4 along with Oregon, UCLA, and Tennessee. Thoughts on likelihood of pickup or how hard Notre Dame will recruit him?" Mark, I think that Notre Dame will probably try to a degree, but I have said this the minute that he decommitted from Arizona. This is just my opinion. I know he named the top 4 and people are saying that it's open and all that type of stuff. I have a very good thought here that Elijah Rushing knows where he's going to go to school next year. I think that I have a very good opinion on that. Okay. And I think that Elijah Rushing knows where he's going to go to school next year. And I think most people know where he's going to go to school next year. So maybe it's open. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I mean, if you're asking me about Notre Dame's chances, very little. Very little. I don't think that one is going to happen. So
yeah, it's pretty much like he decommitted knowing.
Yeah. You typically don't decommit just to fully open it up this late in the process, right? Like it usually does not happen that way, but I guess things have happened or things can happen. Sean, I just think I know where he's going, and I'll just leave it at that for now.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. He more than likely he'll be on the West Coast.
Yes, I would agree. We had a super chat from Raymond Harton. Thank you so much, Raymond. It just says, "Great show, guys. Good to see Sean. And as always, thanks for the recruiting updates. Ryan, go Irish." Thank you so much, Raymond. And it is great to see Sean. I agree. Thank you all so much for that.
Thank you.
Let's go to this one. Was from Robert Matichek, who says, "Is there a current player, commit, or recruit that reminds CJ of his style?" Oh, sorry. This was for Robert. Robert, this was for CJ Prosise when we had him on, but we'll still handle it, Sean. We'll still do it. Is there a current player, commit, or recruit that reminds you of CJ from a style or game perspective? Same question, but are you a player at a different position he's excited particularly about? We can't answer that one. Thank you so much, Robert. I'm sorry I missed this one, but Sean, is there a player or a recruit that reminds you a little bit of CJ Prosise?
Well, we talked to him about it, in my opinion. Xavier Watts literally could be very good at 2 to 3 positions, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball or offensive side of the ball. And I promise you, Notre Dame fans, I've seen him make plays in practice at wide receiver. Like consistently. So if he came, he would be a great help if he had switched to wide receiver with things as they stand right now. But, for his outlook and what he wanted to do in his career, he stayed on the defensive side of the ball. I'm happy he stayed on the defensive side of the ball. And I think CJ said it. Like, I love watching him and how they play. And that's how I saw myself playing at safety. So I would probably say Xavier Watts.
I think Xavier's a good one. It's better than anyone I have, Sean. It would have been Brandon Hillman if Brandon Hillman would have went to Notre Dame. That would have been my guy. But obviously he's not at Notre Dame. He's at Michigan now. But yeah, I think Xavier Watts makes a lot of sense, obviously, for the transitions he's made during his career. We had this question I just want to answer real quick. Anthony Solomon said, "What do you want to see from the offense after the bye week, Sean? What do you want to see? What's the growth you want to see?"
I want to see an evolution, if that makes sense. I want to see an evolution. I want to see the wide receivers better at releases, their routes, getting separation. I want to see the offensive line continuing to get better. Solve all that this is when you solve all that rotation stuff on the inside. But I can't really be too upset because in the biggest games, the offensive line has shown up. They showed up against Ohio State. They showed up against USC. You want to debate Duke and Louisville and all of that? Fine. All I know is in the 2 biggest games, the offensive line showed up. and I need Sam Hartman to take some darn shots. Period. There's no reason Chris Tyree shouldn't get 3 shots a game. 2 to 3 shots a game.
Yeah.
Throw the ball deep to Tobias. So what? He dropped the ball against Duke. So what? That's what happens with players. They drop the ball. You keep going to them. At some point, you have to put confidence into your young players.
Yep.
You have to. What else do you have? Because you're going to expect him to be a difference maker next year. So at some point, we have to get him at least 2 shots per game. There's no reason for Notre Dame not to take shots the way defenses are playing them.
Yep. Well, and Sean, that's exactly my point, is that aggressiveness is kind of like an overarching thing. But the thing I want to see mostly, Anthony, for me, is you need to find some way to win outside the numbers at some point. You have to. Your outside receivers, they have to get involved, or at least the outside portion of the field. I truly believe, like I've talked about this a million times, you are making the field very condensed for Notre Dame right now. You're making passing windows smaller. You're making the margin for error for offensive linemen smaller. You need to be able to, in my opinion, open up the field a little bit. And I'm not talking about open up the field vertically. Like, it's great. You can hit some shots, but some bubble screens out there, some stuff outside the numbers, some comebacks. Like, you need to be able to affect the outside perimeter so that teams aren't just going to funnel everything inside and make it harder for you. You're making it a lot harder for you by being very just one-dimensional and predictable right now. It's not easy to play offense right now at Notre Dame. So I just want to see them make some plays outside the numbers, because I think that will be able to open up a lot of possibilities on the field. A whole lot. Show me a question for you. Here we go. Wait. Yeah, let's go here. We had a question from DMND13. What's up, Dan? Sean, what are your thoughts on Notre Dame fans on X not being able to objective and admit Caleb Williams is a better pro prospect than Sam Hartman? I replied once to have your back with those jokers for what it's worth.
So, Ryan, you know me. I try to be as objective as I can when it comes to not only Notre Dame players, but players in college football, right? So this guy, I think his name is Coach Brown or something, was the one that put up the post immediately after the game Saturday about Sam Hartman being he's the most pro-ready quarterback in all of college football, and he's better than Caleb Williams, right? Which I found to be absolutely hilarious, right? And under that, there were a couple of former Notre Dame players that agreed with it. One happened to be somebody that I talk to on a consistent basis, Paul Grassmanis. And so, then I saw someone that has a Notre Dame podcast pretty much repost the same tweet 2 nights ago. And so I put a tweet out like, wow, people are really trying to push this narrative that Sam Hartman is a better quarterback than Caleb Williams, right?
Wait, so that on a Notre Dame podcast? Someone said on a Notre Dame podcast?
You know how they have their Twitter page and they'll retweet,
Yep.
I won't say the name because, whatever.
It's fine, yep.
And so that's what inspired the tweet. And Notre Dame fans, they're in their emotions over the fingernails, in their emotions about some other stuff with the kid that took his picture running off the field. Then he had a press conference yesterday where he was asked about the kid. They're in their feelings about his response. It's just, dude. So I got a bunch of whatever. The point is, Sam Hartman's nowhere near Caleb Williams as a quarterback. He's not. That's
especially
my
not as
opinion.
A pro prospect. Especially not as a pro prospect. Yeah.
That's my opinion. I stand on it for myself.
Yep.
And the fact that Sam Hartman is Notre Dame's quarterback is not going to change my objectivity when it comes to that statement. Period. Right? And then everybody wants to move the goalposts, right? They want to tell me about somebody else on another podcast in Notre Dame that pointed out how efficient Sam Hartman is, and he's top 15 in the nation. And then we go to all of this other stuff, and I'm like, dude, he might not even eclipse 3,000 yards passing. Literally.
Yeah.
He might not eclipse 3,000 yards passing. So I said, which transfer quarterback has been better? Jack Cohn or Sam Hartman? And people got offended, right? Because I guess this other guy on this other podcast, when he was talking about efficiency, also said that Sam Hartman is the best Notre Dame quarterback since Brady Quinn, and I call cap on that. I know 2 quarterbacks in 2015 that I would much rather have in a big game against USC and Ohio State than Sam Hartman. Because I actually watched them go into hostile territories and put up 30 points. You need points to win games. And I'm sorry. Against the best competition, I don't care how you talk about efficiency, QBR, all them stats. How many points are you putting up? How many points as a quarterback are you putting up? 14 against Ohio State is not good enough. That's 4 more points than Tyler Buchner.
That's true. It's very true.
And Tyler Buchner was on the road. So what are we talking about? So let's be honest. That's not what we brought this quarterback here to do. We expected more, and we didn't get it in the bigger games. No, I understand, because people are going to say, well, it's a team game. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. However, when you brought that quarterback here, you did not anticipate the same offensive struggles. You thought he would elevate in spite of.
Yeah. That's
what most of us thought. And it hasn't happened. So if you're not objective enough to give some blame, go ahead. You can give blame to the OC. You want to go back to the summer and give blame to Jack Swarbrick? Fine. For the handling of the Ludwig situation? Fine. You can blame the wide receivers. You can nitpick the offensive line. Right?
Yep.
That quarterback has yet to put up. I mean, if you want to count the 40 points they put up against USC, when the defense pretty much set them up for 3 touchdowns, all right, fine. But Notre Dame fans had a problem with me saying Caleb Williams is a better quarterback. Like, oh, you love him and da-da-da. It's like, dude, yes, I love great players. You're right.
I said before the season, that Caleb Williams was awesome too, and Notre Dame Twitter came at me too. I'm just like, guys, I don't know what we're doing here. I mean, I can say on one breath that Sam Hartman is a really good college quarterback, good college quarterback, and he's been good for Notre Dame. It's been good, not great, but good. And I can say in the other breath that Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 draft pick in the 2024 NFL draft, and he won a Heisman last year. I can say both those things because they're true. Is Sam Hartman a better pro prospect than Caleb Williams? Absolutely not. It's not even close. It's not even close.
And then, fans were saying that the guy with the original, that's satire. He was joking. Nobody would seriously say that. Okay, that's fine. But what about the former Notre Dame players in the thread that agree, and the Notre Dame podcast that agree? It's like, come on, man. Like, if you don't, that's fine. If you want to take the fingernail situation and some other stuff and label Caleb Williams, that's fine. I don't do that to people that I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't take 1 or 2 incidents and I don't know you. I don't know anything about you, really, and try to label you. Like, no, I don't do that. That's not how I treat people. I can't speak for anybody else. And I'm not, maybe that's it. I don't get that emotional in my fandom. I just don't. Like, I don't use my fandom to hate players on the other team.
Yeah.
I just don't. I
respect players, man. I respect them. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I just don't. So I'm not. If that's the case, Riley Leonard would suck to me.
Yeah.
Jack Plummer was.
Sean, the best was there were people in this chat. There was a hypothetical that we were asked. I think it was asked on. I forget when it was asked. To be honest with you, someone had asked basically if Caleb Williams entered the portal, would you take him? And I am not being hyperbolic when I said there were people in the chat literally saying they would not take Caleb Williams in Notre Dame.
Absolutely.
But not because of the fingernail thing. That was a couple people. But there were other legitimate people that were saying no because they think he's overrated.
That's fine. In his overrated state, he's probably better than name a quarterback in Notre Dame's history that he's not better than.
I mean, talent-wise,
and last night, Nick Kramer, who follows the show, have really good conversations with him on social media.
Yeah, I've seen Nick
asked a very interesting question, and he was like, if you're going to start a team, which quarterback would you use?
Okay.
And I flat out said the 2 quarterbacks in 2015. My 3 would be Ev, Malik, and Deshaun. Give me those 3 before Sam Hartman. Because they impact the game in more ways than Sam Hartman. I don't want to hear about that efficiency.
Yep.
They're more equipped, and they showed it, that they can walk into, in a big game, go on the road, and put up 30 points. And I said Sam Hartman would have been very close to being my pick until the last 4 games. It just because he put it like this: Ev went on the road as a 10-point underdog against Oklahoma as a true freshman. Numbers weren't that great. He was like 15 for like 29, but he made big play after big play with his legs and his arm. When Oklahoma tied the game up, who hit Chris Brown on the deep pass?
He did.
Everett Golson.
Yep.
Give me that dude. Because in big games, I need somebody that can make plays, big time plays. I don't care about stats and efficiency. Big time plays and points on the scoreboard. That's all that matters to me. That's it. That's all that matters. And he was the best Notre Dame player on the field when they faced Alabama and got trounced. He played his tail off as a true freshman. Deshaun, 2 weeks after Malik gets hurt, walks into Clemson in a storm and puts up points. And Notre Dame fumbled going into the end zone twice. So they should have had more. Yes, give me those 2 dudes over Sam Hartman. Yes. 2014 Florida State. The game was taken from us. Ev outplayed Jameis Winston. Like, we have proof of Notre Dame quarterbacks in big games. But people want to talk efficiency and all of that stuff. Man, you need points. You need points.
I just got a headache, man. I just got a headache. Someone in the chat just called Caleb Williams a running quarterback. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Give me a second, dude. I'm gonna have an aneurysm.
This is
I'm gonna have an aneurysm, dude. That's like when Stephen A. Smith called Dwayne Haskins a scrambling quarterback at one point. Like, what are we talking about, man? Just because a guy can extend plays and throw off platform does not make them a running quarterback. My God. All right, I'm moving on from that. That is, oh my gosh. I feel like I just got punched in the head, dude. Congratulations, person in the chat. You just punched me in the face. Congratulations.
Just to show, I was asked the question. I did not bring up Caleb Williams. Someone asked about it in the mailbag. That is the only reason.
You didn't start it. You didn't start
it. The only reason I brought up Caleb Williams on this show.
And
So
it was
I
a
don't want
great
to hear.
conversation
Yeah,
until
I don't
Caleb
want to
Williams
hear
being
that
a running
stuff.
quarterback.
I don't know if Caleb Williams is overrated. If Caleb Williams is overrated, what is Sam Hartman?
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Yeah, they need to bring Caleb Williams in and run the triple option or something. Like what am I reading, man? I'm all right,
No
let's move
no
on.
one called him overrated after the game in the Coliseum last year.
No, they just hate him because he put nail polish on his fingernails. Like who
None of that.
cares?
Nobody called him overrated then.
Yeah.
But yeah, you won't take him at Notre Dame as your quarterback. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man, there needs a reality check sometimes, man. There's even things that worry me about Caleb Williams a little bit, and it's more about like support system around him than anything. But like that's a different conversation. That's a completely different conversation. He's not a running quarterback. He's a quarterback who can run if he felt like it. There is a completely different thing there. Let's move on though, Sean. Michael Collins said, did Notre Dame change its policy on committed players visiting Notre Dame or Notre Dame commits visiting other schools? If not, should it be given the current flip climate? If they do you agree or disagree? So it's still structured, Michael, as this. A Notre Dame player can visit another school, or a commit could visit Notre Dame if it is an unofficial visit. If a Notre Dame commit takes an official visit to another school, they consider them decommitted at that point, and vice versa. They will not accept a visitor that wants to take an official visit to campus. That is still the structure. That has not changed. I am all for it personally. I have no issues with that rule at all. So we also had one, Sean Adam Blair just asked, hey, Ryan, are you going to do a Coaches on the Road segment? I know that Brian used to do one last year. So we did that during a lot of the dead periods this year, Adam. So make sure that if you're not signed up, I think you are, but just make sure if you aren't signed up at boards.irishbreakdown.com, we will be putting on the context of like not only where people will be, but also how the visits went once I talked to the players. So we had next one. Pull up. Actually, I think I want to do a different one first, Sean, because there was one that I thought was pretty funny. So maybe we'll come back to this one because I was actually kind of curious about this one. Oh, all right. It's a super chat, so I got to bring it up next. I'm sorry. Nathan Milton, super chat. Thanks so much, Nathan. Says, which former Notre Dame player detests Brian Kelly the most? That's a great question, man. I don't know.
I think I know that answer.
Okay, you go ahead if you want. Yeah.
Cam McDaniel.
Really?
And I know it's shocking. I know it's shocking because Cam's personality is so filled with positivity and he's just a really great person. But if you get a chance to talk to him, like I don't know if he's ever, if you ever meet Cam, have him tell you the story about how he kicked Brian Kelly out of the locker room before they played LSU in 2014 in the bowl game.
Oh my gosh.
Just ask him to tell you the story. Phenomenal story. Like, man, get out. And he left. That lets you everything you need to know. That lets you know everything. I don't think there may be see, it's different, right? Because players, if the leadership of a football team, if they want to have a players only session, I'm sure they find a way to respectfully ask their coaches, hey, that's the players. And most head coaches will be like, okay, cool. No, he got put out. He wasn't asked to leave. He got put out.
Yep.
And that lets you know. So Cam McDaniel was the one that got them fired up for LSU. He was the captain. He got them fired up. It's an incredible story. And I tip my cap to Notre Dame players because they have this way of whether or not it was a coach or certain things about Notre Dame, they have a way of talking about it, but still showing a lot of reverence and respect for Notre Dame, the institution, the program, and what it did for them.
Sure.
And continues to do for them. So, but yeah, most of them will go no holds barred now when it comes to Brian Kelly. Like most of them, you have some guys like Robbie Thomas, like a Brian Kelly guy.
Oh, is he okay?
Yeah, Sean Crawford is very objective. Like he loves Brian Kelly, but he gets it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, okay, I'm not going crazy like some other guys, but I understand what they're saying. I was there. So, it's a wide range. It's a wide range.
That's very interesting. Cam McDaniel would not have been my guess for not liking Brian Kelly. That's interesting.
Hey,
that's very strange.
Cam has some stories along those lines.
Interesting, man. That's very interesting. I might have to get in conversation with Cam and just get some of those stories off the StreamYard, but that's funny. We also had another question from Timeout Tom, who says, I'm getting a little impatient waiting for the 2025 class to add some offensive linemen. How many more times can Owen Strebing and Matty Augustine visit before committing? Tom, I mean, Owen Strebing has visited 5 times. Matty Augustine has visited 3 times. I'll say this about Owen Strebing and then real quick about Matty. Owen Strebing has been very consistent with he wants to wait until after junior year and then doing the whole official visit stuff and then making a decision then. But I said on this show recently, as well as on the message board, that I wouldn't be shocked if that changes at some point. And we actually had another question, Sean, that is kind of interrelated to this. Coleman Smith asked, will Owen Strebing be committed for before the 2024 calendar year? And my answer right now, Coleman, because look, as of right now, Owen Strebing is not committed to the University of Notre Dame, but they are his leader by a landslide, in my opinion. Like they are the number 1 for Owen Strebing right now. If I had to guess, and this is again just my speculation, I would say yes to this question. I would say that he would make a decision before the calendar year is over. And back to Timeout Tom, I think that Owen Strebing and Notre Dame are in a great position, as is Matty Augustine. Matty Augustine's more of a, it'll happen when it happens type of guy, while Owen was a very meticulous, like, this is what I want to do, but I think that could change. So I think Notre Dame's the leader for both. It's just about when the decision gets made. So,
and I respect Owen because if you don't understand the culture, and this is not because a lot of people know, there's a very strong culture in the state of Wisconsin when it comes to offensive linemen. Like there is a heavy expectation that the best offensive linemen from that state go to Wisconsin.
Yep.
I'm talking about from the time they are 7th, 8th grade freshmen and they start to build up and get noticed. And, Owen Strick is no different, man. No different. The Flanagan kid is probably experiencing some of the same thoughts and pressures, especially with a new regime at the University of Wisconsin. So, and they're probably selling, this is not your dad's Wisconsin, and, two yards in a cloud of dust,
And Michigan has made a big push for James Flanagan as well. But
and that speaks for itself. Heck, they've been one of the Joe Moore finalists for 3 years in a row or something like that. So
yeah.
I get it. I get it with Owen Strebing. Look, I want him in the class just as bad as anybody else. Was very impressed with his sophomore film. So man.
He's a stud, man. He's a really good player.
I mean, but most 25 kids really, for me, it's rare to have 25 kids committing now. That's the rarity. Most kids, once the bowl season is over, going into like the spring, and then like the early summer, that's when you start to see a lot of 25 kids like really committing and, the avalanche, if you will. So Hey, you told him double R.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Just got to be patient, man. I know patience isn't. It's not easy sometimes. I definitely get it, but yeah. Sean, we had a couple for you actually. Oh wait, whoa. Here we go. Another super chat, man. Nathan Millen is emptying his pockets today for us, sir. Thank you so much, Nathan. What household item would you compare Brian Kelly to? Why are we doing this? What are we doing? Oh gosh. What item? I would compare him to a bidet. Why, Sean? Because it's just a fancy toilet. That's all. That's all I got to say. No explanation. That's all. You have one? This is such a weird question. I love it though. It's funny. Somebody's answering. Someone said a pooper scooper.
Originally, I was thinking a plunger.
Someone said a plunger.
I was
Johnny S said a plunger.
But then I said to myself, no, because the plunger actually clears things up.
Someone said a bidet is not a toilet. You guys know what I mean, man. Like, forget it. Okay, we're not going into the bidet thing right now. Sean, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
He's a broom.
He's a broom. Okay.
Yeah. You know, you can try to sweep things up, but the truth of the matter is, you know, brooms get dirtier and dirtier every time you use them.
That's deep, man.
As much as he tries to crack jokes and explain things and clean things up, nothing comes. It's still dirty. It's still dirty.
I have to ask Cam McDaniel about this one, I guess. I don't know.
That's Brian McDaniel. That's Brian McDaniel. I'm sorry. That's Brian Kelly in a nutshell.
That's Nathan. I don't know why you asked that question, but that was pretty funny. All right, let's get off the next one. Sean, someone had asked this of you. Here we go.
Me?
Yeah. Who, me? Yeah, me. Tyler Eric says, Sean Davis, if is your daughter walking around campus in the same outfit Amon-Ra wore in the locker room this week?
No, heck no. The bet was I had this pin.
Nice.
That she sent to me that says beat ND in the USC colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was gonna have to wear that on my shows this week. And she has I try to explain to people. That she is a Notre Dame fan. The little girl grew up on Saturdays watching Notre Dame football next to me. She cheers for the school she goes to. That's what most people do. So at heart, she's a Notre Dame fan, right? Like she gave up her season tickets this year. She was just like, they're not going to do anything this year. Yeah. It's like she knew it, So, no, she wore one T-shirt, took a picture, sent it to me.
You got the proof? Good.
Yeah, she sent it to me, and that was good enough for me. That was good enough for me. And she said no one even said anything to her.
Really? No one? That's interesting.
No, she said no. That's you have to understand, man. We could probably do a whole podcast on this, but the level of disinterest in that program in comparison to the early 2000s, mid 2000s, is some people might say troubling. Some people might say troubling. It is really it's not the show that it used to be.
I believe it.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Coleman Smith with back-to-back here, Sean. He just said quickly, is Notre Dame done at safety in 2024? Yes, I believe so, Coleman. I don't expect any other safety added or pushed for. And then he had one for
the transfer, right? Unless
transfer portal is a completely different bag, but yeah. Yep. As for 2024 recruiting class, though, nope, don't anticipate any other safeties. Coleman Smith also said, for Sean, I know you're a big basketball guy, as am I. Can you give me your prediction for Shrewsbury his first year? Or Shrewsbury, excuse me. Mike Shrewsbury.
I think they will. They'll struggle defensively a little bit. As long as they can knock down shots, they should be, because his system is all about layups and 3-pointers. Like, that's it. Layups and 3-pointers. And last year at Penn State, he had some incredible shooters at guard, an incredible point guard that could do everything, post you up, shoot. And then he had guys like Lundy that were big men and athletic that could stretch the floor. So until he gets his recruits in to be able to fit his system, middle of the pack, ACC, with an outside chance to get to the tournament. Because he's a really good coach. He's a really good coach.
But you're completely turning over that roster, right? Like, isn't that the whole thing? It's like is that as big a deal in basketball as it is in football, since there's like less players? I don't know.
Transfer portal is worse in basketball than it is football.
Interesting.
It's worse. Like, literally, you can turn around. I think Illinois plays Florida International, and I think Florida is it Florida International that ended up in the Final Four last year?
Florida Atlantic, I think. Was
Atlantic.
it FAU?
FAU.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so Illinois plays Florida Atlantic, and they returned pretty much the entire team from the Final Four and picked up some other guys. So, yeah, I think Shrewsbury is going to have a successful first year. Don't expect the ACC championship, anything like that. But offensively, they're going to give teams problems. And then, as they get better defensively, they'll have more success.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Micah Shrewsbury, so I'm excited.
He's a heck of a coach, bro. Like, he's a heck of a coach.
Sean, I used to follow Notre Dame basketball like religiously. I just have I lost it the last few years, though, man. I did. Like, the last few years, I was just kind of like, it's not like exciting to me right now. You know what I mean? So
he is. You have these college. It's the same thing. You have these college football lifers. College basketball lifers. And then you get guys that will come from the NFL, and they just, they could tell a kid like, yo, he can literally tell a kid, I'm the one that worked with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and developed them.
Yeah.
If you're a high schooler, they're like, oh, okay.
Sure.
All right. And that is the next step, in my opinion, from the last head coach, who was a fabulous head coach, but he was, he was a lifer. He was a college basketball lifer. He came off from under Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. I mean, so that's just the type of coach he is. So, Shrewsbury gives a new vibe to Notre Dame with its connection to the NBA and development.
We had another question for you. Coach Vic 7 said, hey, Sean, does Illinois have a shot at bragging rights this year?
Man, no, because Quanzo Martin is a better head coach than Brad Underwood. No. I could, other than we got T to come back instead of going to the NBA and Hawkins. Other than that, I couldn't tell you, because I think they have like 6 or 7 brand new guys from the transfer portal. No, I would expect Missouri to win that game.
Interesting. We had next question from PK. What's up, PK? It says, post Sam Hartman, you can do 1, portal a starter, 2, portal a part-timer, or 3, go with Minchie or CJ. Choose which most likely and why.
Bro, the way they talked about Kenny Minchie in that prep week for USC, Gino Guidugli is paying dividends.
Yeah. I number 2 was my impulse, Sean. Like, part-timer to be a backup, cool, and then you have Minchie and CJ kind of fighting it out and Angeli to be the starter. I'm cool with that. I mean,
now, how would you rather have because somebody got upset because I used the comparison to Ferrari. I just expect the skill position talent as the group that are freshmen as sophomores to be more talented, and then you add that new group of freshmen, and you still have Jaden Thomas. I just expect the skill position players to be much better next year.
I would agree.
Right?
You shouldn't really have a defection from the roster, right? I mean, you're going to lose Matt Salerno, who's already hurt, but otherwise, Chris Tyree could even come back if he wants to. So, I mean, you should be stronger next year for sure. Yeah.
So, I think with that much talent, do you turn the keys over to a young quarterback with that much talent, right? And then with the expanded playoff, the pressure to go undefeated is not there anymore. So the first game is at Texas A&M. Do you want that to be where a youngster has his first start? Or would you rather have a veteran that's played in some tough environments to be able to come in and possibly, get you through the first 2 or 3 games until your guys are ready? I mean, it's going to be a interesting development.
I will say this is PK, I would be a lot more willing to answer this question as well if I knew what quarterbacks would definitely be in the portal or on the market, right? Like that could potentially change my answer completely. I just I know people have thrown his name around and there's been like kind of back and forth on it, but like if Riley Leonard wanted to come play at Notre Dame for a year, I would 100% take Riley Leonard. Wouldn't even think twice about it. Because Kenny Minchie, you could still say Richard sophomore potentially starter. You can talk about CJ Richard freshman starter. I mean, you still have time, right? You still have time with those guys. It's not like I'm bringing in a guy to block a senior from playing and then the senior runs out of eligibility that you like. I mean, you still have young guys. So I would consider it depending on who's available. I just don't know who's going to be available. But my impulse is number 2 on that one. That's my impulse.
You could have a defection from the Texas quarterback room is crowded. It's like you said, some interesting names could definitely hit the portal.
Yep.
Could definitely hit the portal.
I agree. All right, Sean, we had another super chat. Man, Nathan just keeps coming here, man. He says, which top 10 team BKs the bed this week? Which obviously means do not do well in a big game this week. Which top 10 team? So I'm going to read the top 10 games real quick.
This is easy.
Number 7, Penn State. At number 3, Ohio State. You have UCF at number 6, Oklahoma. You got Washington State at number 9, Oregon. You have number 8, Texas at Houston. Virginia at number 10, North Carolina. Number 2, Michigan at Michigan State. Duke, number 16 at number 4, Florida State. And Arizona State at number 5, Washington. I'm going Penn State over Ohio State. That's been my pick.
I was about to say the Fighting James Franklins.
Which pains me, man, because I don't think James Franklin's that guy, but like he could be that guy this week. So we'll see.
I fully expect. I don't know if Penn State played a really good game against Ohio State last year.
Yep.
Like that was the year where I expected them to get blown out. And they showed up. I'm interested. This is where I look forward to watching Drew Aller. I just want to see Drew Aller on the road in a big game.
Because he's been kind of
he's been what he's had to be.
They've been putting training wheels on him for now, in my opinion. They haven't let him loose. They haven't let him really ride yet. So we'll see.
But you talk about that game is a dream come true for Ryan Roberts. 11 o'clock start and no Notre Dame on Saturday.
Yeah,
he gets to watch Caleb King against Marvin Harrison Jr. He gets to watch JT against the Penn State left tackle. Like this is NFL draft heaven.
Fortunately, Sean, I'll probably have the all 22 that night, which is going to be nice, but I won't be able to watch live because I'm actually going to be at the Harvard-Princeton game this weekend. So that's a 1 o'clock start. So we'll not be there.
That's a great time as well. I'm sure that'll be a great time as well. But yeah,
there's two legit NFL prospects in that game, believe it or not. Somehow, Princeton has a 6'8", 315-pound offensive tackle,
nice.
and Harvard has a 6'2", 320-pound defensive tackle that squats 700 pounds. So we're going to see that, man. We're going to see that. But, yeah. Oh, man. All right.
Did you see what Pat McAfee did to Ryan Day today?
No, what did he do?
You know, he has the guy on his staff that impersonates Lou Holtz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he brought him on the show when Ryan Day came on.
Oh, no.
To kind of mess with Ryan Day. I thought it was hilarious, personally.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Ryan, you could tell Ryan Day was kind of like, all right,
guys. All right, guys. Yeah. Such a Ryan Day thing to do. Oh, my gosh. That guy's very unlikable, but another conversation for another day. We had a two-parter here from Backup who says, Ryan, with the Phillies in the playoffs, I've seen a lot of Philly cheesesteak slander on the timeline. Are they actually overrated? In Los Angeles, we have a booze, which was started by Jersey folks, and can't imagine a cheesesteak being better than that. Are Philly cheesesteaks really worth the hype? Yes, they are. 100% they are. I mean, I think Backup, I think it's like any type of food. There's some really good, there's some not so great, and there's some that are overrated, right? I mean, that's everything though. But there are some really good cheesesteaks in Philly, and there's some really good cheesesteaks in South Jersey, believe it or not, like right over the bridge, because people kind of come over and settle into Jersey as well. So yeah, man, I love a good cheesesteak. You know when I don't get a cheesesteak, Sean? When people advertise it as a cheesesteak sandwich. I'm like, oh no, not for me. Not for me,
not
please.
What it is. My first cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteak, was at the market.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a good one at the market. I think Philly is like fried chicken wings in Chicago. Like you have places that try to be elevated chicken wings, and then you have places like Harold's, which is just like, yo, if you come here, go to the hood, get you a 6 wing from Harold's. It's gonna be a greasy bag, mild sauce, hot, however you want to do it. And the cheesesteak in Philly is the same thing. You know, they have the staples, you know, and the 3 places that are the staples that you have the greasy bag, and then you have some people that try to elevate it, you know, at other spots. But I loved what I had when I had it. Yeah.
Just don't go to look. You're always gonna you're gonna go into Philly and you're gonna Google what the best cheesesteak is, and then you're gonna end up going to one of the mainstream places, and that's never the best cheesesteak. It's just never the best cheesesteak. There used to be a place in Philly called Chinks. It used to be called Chinks, which is not racist. It was called Chinks because it was actually the guy's last name, but they made him change it anyway because sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
But that place was legit. I don't even know what it's called anymore, man, but there are some good cheesesteaks. Irish Gory Nut's about to get blocked in a second. I just can't take this stuff right here.
Penn Station has a decent steak sandwich in South Bend. I tried it out. I went to lunch with B. Driss.
Nice.
After practice one day, and I tried the steak sandwich there. It was pretty decent. I was like, okay, Penn Station.
Well, you know what's funny is someone that so the Knights of Columbus guys, right, at the game, they were like, they told me to come by and for like a steak sandwich, right? So my mind, of course, went to cheesesteak, right? And then I got there and I'm like, this is a sirloin steak on a roll. Like, this is not a cheesesteak. This is just a steak sandwich, but it was delicious.
Oh, a flat out steak sandwich.
Yeah, but it took me by surprise. I was like, oh, this is not what I was expecting, but it was still delicious.
Yeah, one of the places up here, one of the Italian beef spots, has a fantastic ribeye sandwich. Just fantastic with the grilled onions and the steak sauce on it.
Sounds good, man.
Phenomenal.
Sounds good. We had, I'm gonna rock through a few of these because some of them are just almost yes or no's type of thing at this point. We had Tyler Binge who just said, comment, Sean, great show with Shane. Also love the argument segment you had with Malik. What were you guys arguing about?
So we got off and we were talking about Malik started the conversation basically saying like, I have not gotten the juice from Sam Hartman coming in that I thought I would.
Okay.
Right. So it's that whole conversation. And I asked the question like, yo, has he done more or has he been better than Jack Cohn was as a transfer? And then he started to argue me down that because I said, yo, let's be objective. Jack Cohn's offensive line was terrible in comparison to what Sam plays behind. I said, but Jack Cohn had better receivers than Sam has had to deal with. All right. Because Kevin Austin, that was his best year. He was finally healthy. He still had Michael Mayer. That was Lorenzo Styles' freshman year. He came on in the second half.
Look good.
I was like, yo, I mean, let's be objective. We can just say it, but let's be objective. Like, who are you more impressed with? And he was like, Notre Dame didn't have Jack Cohn didn't have a number one receiver. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like Kevin Austin was definitely a number one receiver, and Michael Mayer. And
yeah, I think they both had like over 700 yards that year. So like they were both pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, he said the wife argument.
Oh, the wife argument.
Oh, now that's out of context. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Malik and I were talking about, there is a science to arguing with your spouse or your girlfriend, right?
Okay.
For me, it's my wife of 24 years, soon to be 25, and Malik, his fiance. And both of us married young ladies that came from difficult backgrounds, whatever. And, I said, like, yo, I'm very good when it comes to arguing because I can dissect your words word for word, like I can do that. I said, but my wife has this switch that she hits. And I was like, yo, I just have to like back away. Like, that's not me. I'm not an expert with the expletives. I'm not good at forming those. So you win. I don't even want to go down that road with you. Right. And we both laughed about it because he said, yeah, my fiance is the same way. I try to keep it intellectual to give myself a chance. But yeah, we were just, and then, people in the chat joined in. We were just talking about, the makeup of the argument culture, in your relationships. It's I don't know where you stand with your wife, Double R. You feel like you win most of yours, but
I don't win any of mine, Sean.
Yeah.
I don't win any of them.
I understand.
I don't win any of them. In my mind, I win some. In actuality, I don't win any. So yeah, man. Yeah, I don't win a thing.
I gracefully bow out a lot.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
But you know what works for me? And I just had this conversation with my wife last night. When I give her the silent treatment, like if I don't say anything and give her the silent treatment, like for a day, it really breaks her down. It
my
breaks
wife is
her
the
down.
same. My wife is the same.
Don't it really messes with her.
But sometimes she gets more angry, and then she's like, "Why you talk to me all day?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't know what you want from me right now. I don't know what you want from me right now. I'm a little confused."
But yeah, my argument game, I have to be intellectual. I can't get into the emotions.
It's great. It's very, very smart of you, sir. It's very smart of you. We had our next question was, we're winding down here. Nathan Milton said, what's your sense on Nnamdi Agboko, who is the defensive tackle out of the state of North Carolina, committed to Georgia in the 2024 class to visit Notre Dame a couple weeks ago? This is my opinion, Nathan. I think that Notre Dame had a shot, and I still think they have a little bit of a shot, but there was kind of an assumption that Aiden Breland for a few days was going to go to Georgia, and then he decided to go to Oregon, right? So now Georgia's not going to be overly crowded on the defensive tackle position as they once were. So I think that it got a little bit harder for Nnamdi Agboko, but I think Notre Dame is still doing their due diligence to try to make that happen. So we shall see. We shall see. We had a good question here, Sean. Obviously, we had CJ Prosise on earlier for anybody that's joining the show now. But John Grisali, excuse me, loved watching CJ's versatility when he was at Notre Dame. Out of the 2024 and 2025 running back commits, Justin Thurman seems to have the most versatility. If running back doesn't work out, would he be better as a wide receiver or a defensive back? So, Sean, I actually talked to Brian Smith about this because he's seen Justin Thurman more than just about anybody being down in Florida. He told me that he thinks that Justin Thurman could play safety or wide receiver if he wanted to. He thinks that. I personally, John, like I'm more like if this was something that happened and Justin was moving it from running back, I would rather keep him on the offensive side of the ball because 4.3 speed is better served with the ball in his hand, typically, right? So a wide receiver would probably be the designation, but it sounds like he can play safety if he wanted to. So yeah, I don't know if you have an opinion on that, Sean, but that's just kind of what Brian Smith told me. But
yeah, 4-3. Yeah, let's find a way to get him the ball.
Yeah,
I mean, oh man, I don't think people realize the amount of talent, offensive talent. Like, I give this staff a lot of credit, right? Because there was a lot of buzz about the 23 class because it was really Marcus Freeman's first class, his staff. 24 classes, jumped off with CJ Carr and Cam Williams, and there was a lot of buzz, and it's solid.
Yep.
It's just been solid,
Agree.
And but even with that being said, the narrative of the skill position at Notre Dame is changing right before our eyes.
Agree.
I feel very confident in being able to say that. Very confident. You're like, I understand you're looking at the freshman wide receivers right now. You're like, oh, they can't do this, they can't do that. Yo, just wait. Notre Dame has like what, 5 tight ends literally playing, getting a lot of tick. 5.
Yep.
Is it
haven't
5?
even used
I
a
think
couple.
it's 5.
Haven't even used a couple of them in the passing game yet, Sean. So like we haven't seen Eli Raridon catch a pass yet. We haven't seen Cooper Flanagan catch a pass yet. So yeah, man, they got some tight ends. Tight ends.
In the running
shocking that Notre Dame has tight ends. Like who would have thought that would ever happen, right? But yeah. Sean, Dan V just asked, last minute mailbag. Sean, do you still talk to Justin Scott? If so, how is he doing? I know Notre Dame is not going to happen, but he seems like a good kid.
I haven't talked to him in a while. I talked to him, right after he made his decision. And actually I talked to Cam Williams 2 nights ago. Just catching up, and then asked him if he had talked to Justin. And he was like, he pretty much was like, no, I left him alone. They are good friends, so they talk, but they don't talk about recruiting or anything
college
like that.
Stuff.
And Justin has been dealing with injuries this year, this season. I think
which explains why St. Ignatius having a little bit of a tough year, right? Aren't they having not the best season ever? Yeah.
And Joliet Catholic, they play Joliet Catholic tonight, I believe, which is a big time game. But
that's the defensive tackle that's going to Wisconsin. He plays for Joliet, right?
Yeah,
I forget his name, but he's a good player.
So he is he got injured in the Brother Rice game.
Okay.
Early in the season when they played Brother Rice. And their team is just not as good as they were last year.
Yeah, it seems like it. I saw a couple of their scores, and they definitely don't seem to be quite as good as last year. We had a question, Blake Kajar, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it. Don't know if you hit this topic yet. Latest on Carter Nelson. Think there is hope to land Anthony Rizak. With Carter Nelson, it's about now a family decision that's going to be made moving forward. Notre Dame certainly gave him a lot to think about, Blake. I think it could go either way. I could see him flipping to Notre Dame eventually. I could see him sticking with Nebraska. I think those are the 2 options that are on the table. So next few weeks will be vital for that recruitment.
Once getting a guy on campus is huge. Like you say all the time, Double R. Like
make him think, man. Make him think.
And actually
he's thinking.
Like Notre Dame didn't make him think.
Yeah.
No, Nebraska's performance.
That's also making him think probably a little
made him think. And then he probably was like, you know what? Let me take this trip up here to the USC game. Because
right.
I'm looking at the quarterback situation, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, they got some big kid that's basically like he's basically like a power read quarterback. He's like a 6'5", 215-pound kid just running like off tackle and stuff. I'm like, okay. All right. Cool. Think there is hope to land Anthony Rizak. We'll see, Blake, on that over the next few weeks as well.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't get a ton more offers, because right now all the military schools are the only ones. This is Anthony Rizak, who's a quarterback out of Omaha West Side, of course, Teddy Rizak's brother, who Notre Dame offered a preferred walk-on, spot 2. I think that they'll have a chance if the offer list stays small, but I think that there's hope that, he'll boom a little bit from the recruiting over the next couple months, because he's having a really good senior year. So we'll see if it booms, but if not, I think Notre Dame will have a shot. We shall see, though, with what the offers bring. 99 Problems Week 81, the Micah Gilbert conversation got me thinking. How would you rank each wide receiver from the combined 2023 and 2024 classes? That would help put Gilbert's talent level into context from Notre Dame perspective. All right, Sean, ready? We're going to rank these 7 receivers as recruits. We're going to do it right now. Okay. So we have 2023 class: Jaden Greathouse, Braylon James, Caleb Smith, Rico Flores Jr. 2024, you have Cam Williams, Logan Saldate, and Micah Gilbert. Okay. Let's just go one by one. Number 1 on your list would be
Cam
Williams as well.
Cam,
Yes.
Yeah, he's undoubtedly the number 1.
I would agree. Cam Williams would be number 1. Your number 2 would be?
I would go Greathouse. Number 2.
I would also go Jaden Greathouse number 2.
Yeah.
Your number 3 would be?
Now, see, I have to. Oh. I'm gonna stick to my heart. I'm gonna give it to Rico. I'm gonna give it to Rico.
Number 3 would be Micah Gilbert for me, actually. Micah Gilbert would be number 3.
They're 3-4 for me. So you don't.
Okay.
I'm at Gilbert at 4.
So you got Gilbert at 4.
Yeah.
4 for me would be Braylon James. Would be number 4. Mm-hmm. Number 5 for me would be Rico Flores Jr. So we have the same middle 3 there, just in a little bit of a different order. Number 5 for you would be?
I really like the Saldate kid.
Saldate? You like him? Yeah. It's a good player, man. It's a good player.
I think I've heard some things. Next year, Caleb Smith might be a problem in that slot, man.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
So that's why Braylon James, I think by the end of it, Braylon James might have a shot to be top 3.
Possible. Yeah, possible.
Just all talent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say my 6 and 7. I would actually have Logan Saldate, then Caleb Smith. I liked Caleb, but I wasn't the biggest Caleb Smith guy of all time. I really like Logan Saldate, man. I like him a lot. I really like him a lot. So, yeah.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. All right. And then last one, Sean, we have to end with this stupid comment. Brandon Gilbert, and not stupid from Brandon's perspective, just a Desmond Howard thing. Did either of y'all see Desmond Howard say that Notre Dame doesn't have the athletes on the outside to compete with Southern Cal's wide receivers? That show has deteriorated. Yeah. Sean, not only that stupid comment, I also had to listen to, the Michigan thing that's happening right now with like the investigation that's happening.
Yeah, I saw what he said about that.
But why are we bringing Desmond Howard on to talk about that? He's a Michigan guy. You think he's going to tear Michigan down if he thinks they're wrong?
Well, he's the only one on that show. He's the only one on that show that's willing to do spots like that. Herb Hurstreet, he's too big. He's not doing a spot like that to come on, one of the morning shows to talk about that. And Reese isn't, the host, Fowler isn't either. So he's the guy. It's either him or the Steve guy. That's the betting guy.
Oh yeah, who's also not very good at betting.
At picks, right? It's not like Bear was knocking it out the park, but man.
Yeah. Sean, I heard him talking about the situation though, and I'm like, what did I expect Desmond Howard to say about the Michigan situation right now? What did I expect him? I understand you're pulling from like a limited base or whatever, but like get someone on there that's not have any bias attached to him. Like he's a Michigan guy. Of course he's not going to tear Michigan down. Like I didn't need to hear him say it.
I was perfectly fine with Heather Dinich being the only person to talk about it.
Right.
Like I
an unbiased opinion.
Understand Feinbaum and his allegiance to the SEC, and this is a Big Ten thing. Okay, cool. But you got some other guys there. You can pull the Acho got, Sam Acho, he does College Football Live.
Yeah.
You know, I understand, you know, he's just the go-to guy, you know, on location from game day, wherever they are. But that's not even the most embarrassing thing he said last
This
Saturday.
process is.
Oh, that was nothing. That was
Oh,
nothing.
God.
He actually did a film breakdown of Michael Penix. And I don't know
I
if you're
saw that.
familiar.
I
You know,
saw
I don't
that.
know if you're familiar with the young lady rapper Lotto, you know, and
No.
her hit single.
No.
He said he needed Michael Penix. His name is Michael Penix. But in his breakdown, Desmond Howard said he needed Michael Penix to have big Penix energy.
Oh, I heard this. I heard
And I
it,
said, you
man.
know
I heard
what?
it.
I said, bro, that's embarrassing.
Oh no, Sean, I saw this because Desmond Howard literally was chanting it on College Game Day last week.
Mhm.
Big Penix power, big Penix energy. Sorry, big Penix energy. I'm just like, my God, dude, how old are
Like,
we? Like, how
you
old are we?
changed. You totally changed this. His name is Michael Penix.
Yep.
It does not rhyme with that other word. So you forced it. You just forced it. It's like, really?
That's what we call a slant rhyme, Sean. That's what we call a slant rhyme. I was an
I
English
guess
major.
so,
That's what we call
man.
a slant
I guess
rhyme.
so.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
that show has you know, because Lee Corso, who was the show, pretty much.
Yep. He's at near
Like,
the end. Yeah.
you get towards the end, and you know, for health reasons. It's not like he's bad. You know, he is who he is now because of health reasons. And he's a shell of himself, and it's tough to watch. Desmond Howard is, and to have a Michigan and Ohio State guy,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how much hate do you want to have for Notre Dame every week? Because you know it's coming.
Yeah, the worst part is like I don't even like hate Herb Street much as far as like his opinion on things, except when it comes to Notre Dame, Sean. It's just so biased, man. And it's always biased towards Ohio State as well, which again, I understand that completely. At least he doesn't come off as just kind of a doofus like Desmond Howard does a lot, though. Like Desmond Howard just comes off as a doofus all the time. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't listen to this guy, man. Can't listen to this
And
guy.
I will say this: it's Lee Corso wants to be connected to the show.
Yeah.
It helps him. It helps him with his health to stay active. But, you know, eventually they're going to have to make that transition, you know.
And I feel like it's starting, obviously, with the Pat McAfee stuff, right? Like that transition's starting.
It's going to be a sad day, man.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing better than waiting to see his pick.
I know, man.
That
was like a great thing growing up, man.
There was nothing better than that. Nothing better.
Man. Yeah. You're not wrong, man. He was awesome back in the day. He was so entertaining. He was really entertaining in his heyday. He really was. I feel bad about it, honestly, but yeah.
You know, he was a coach, he was a player, he knew what the heck he was talking about, and he knew he knew the betting side of it. He was just really comprehensive.
I agree. Well, folks, that's going to do it for the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, if you could please just hit that like button for us, subscribe to the podcast, hit that notification bell. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are always very, very much appreciated. Make sure you go to follow Sean Davis and the Lucky Lefty podcast. Of course, we are going to be doing a lot of board activity on the board this weekend, talking about some games since we're off from Notre Dame football this weekend. So make sure to go to boards.irishbreakdown.com and check out all the latest recruiting and team intel. We got some recruits on the road this week. Who would have thought? And make sure that there's always news to know for Notre Dame Nation. See y'all very soon here again on the show. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. All the great questions, all the super chats. We'll talk to you again very soon here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.